right, welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. But today on the show, we're not doing that because it is the beginning of a new year, which means we have to look back at the previous year and talk about our favorite movies of 2024. And joining me to talk about it, because 2024 was an awesome movie year, we've got Josh Bell and Jason Harris, the co-hosts of Awesome Movie Year, the other movie podcast that I produce. And we will get into all three of our lists of 10 favorite movies, as well as some honorable mentions, some favorite moments from the movies, and some picks from our Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces Facebook group, which you should join if you are a listener of this show and you are on Facebook. Join us. It's a fun time. Lots of cool people in there that love talking movies. So we've got all of that coming up here in a second. Before we get to it, I do want to remind you, as always, to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together, because I've covered a lot of these movies on the show, and this way, you can go check out all those episodes, and I even have episodes coming on some of these movies. So make sure you are subscribed wherever you're listening right now. And if you enjoy Piecing It Together, drop us a little 5-star rating and review. It'll help make sure that more people check out the show. And it's an all new year, so I want to, of course, keep growing this thing and get more people involved. So drop those 5-star ratings and reviews. That's a great way to kick off the new year, isn't it? So with that said, let's get to this very long episode about our favorite films of 2024. All right, it's that time of year. We are going to do our top 10 films of 2024. And of course, Josh Bell and Jason Harris from Awesome Movie Year are with us. How you guys doing?
Yeah, we're all right.
I'm doing well. I can't wait to see if Sonic 3 has made your top 3, Dave.
Yeah. Well, I had a little bit of last minute shakeup, so it might not be as dumb a list as you might have expected. But
that's a bummer.
That's disappointing. I wanted Sonic. I wanted. I don't even know. I don't want to ruin your list because you're saying it's less dumb. There's probably at least a few dumb things on it. So.
Oh, there's plenty of dumb. But right. we'll get into some of that.
Josh, how many films of young females exploring their sexuality do you have on your list?
At least we all have our things, right?
That's right.
So
he's counting. He's counting.
Is that what he's doing right now? He's counting them? I think so. So Jason, I know you have been in just like total catch-up mode like the last couple of weeks here. Did your list change a lot? Like you didn't join us on our midway, but I mean, did you get a lot of stuff from this last catch-up time?
Yeah, I don't think I would have had a list if not for this past month.
Yeah.
I don't get to go to the screenings all year like you cucks in the Las Vegas Film Society Critics Award hand job team. But I do catch up at the end of the year, and literally my whole last month, I don't know, other than something we might have watched for Awesome Movie Year, I probably just watched movies from 2024 to make sure that my list brings the heat, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. And Josh, has your list changed a lot since our midway?
Not a lot. I think the top of my list is pretty much the same. Spoiler, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I feel like it is almost every year, it seems like.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah. I guess maybe I have a tendency to not want to put something on the list until I've sat with it for a while. I mean, I think this goes with my ratings as well, is that I don't give very high ratings to things initially.
Yeah.
So, but this year, I think about half my list is different from what it was. And that to me seems right, because half the movies should be from the first half of the year. And I think despite the fact that all of these supposed, awards contender movies get released right at the end of the year, that doesn't mean that they're all worthwhile. They're often not, from my perspective, at least. So, but I do have some different stuff, even if the ones that I had at the top kind of stayed the same.
Well, let's start with Jason this year. Number 10, what do you got?
Number 10, and by the way, I just want to say a caveat. We are planning on doing a documentary episode, which we say every year, but we're actually doing it this year. So I'm saving my favorite documentaries for that. So these are all kind of narrative films. Not kind of, they all are. And interestingly enough, starting out in the animation department, number 10 for me, Inside Out 2. which somehow they pulled off. It's a much smaller story than the original, which I really liked about it. And it's about angst and, kind of confidence and how to be a good friend and what's important as a teenager and growing into yourself. And they have all these new characters that really work as far as the conflict. Like I said, the story is much smaller, but it all worked in that Inside Out universe. And I thought was just a delightful animated movie. Of course, made $1.5 billion. So everyone, really seemed to vibe with this one. I just think, with all the crappy Disney movies we're getting, these live action remakes, thank goodness Pixar's going back and really hammering what they're good at. Inside Out 2, number 10 for me.
Yeah, I think it's great too. It didn't make my list, but it is a really good one. And I feel like a lot of their stuff has been good, Pixar specifically, over the last few years. It just hasn't made money. And so this one finally did.
Right. I think a part of that is the strategy and, certain things were just released on Disney Plus and everything. But this to me is the closest to getting back to like the real great Pixar movies for the first time in a while.
Yeah, fair enough. Josh, were you a fan?
Not really. I mean, no, I wasn't not a fan. It was fine. It is a movie about a young woman discovering her sexuality, though. So
that is true.
Is she a lesbian in this one, or does she have a boyfriend?
Well, I mean, this is a whole side discussion about Disney's crushing of any diversity or progressive themes in their films now. But to me and to many people, I think it seemed pretty clear that was the intent. Although they've, isn't there's like a post-credit scene where she
goes on a date with the boy and everything.
They're trying to counteract that, but it seemed fairly clear that was the intention at one point. So
that's interesting because I didn't take it. I know what you're talking about. The crush would be on the star player and she's giving up her friends to be with her. I just took it as like a kid who, here's a cool kid and the person I want to be like, so I'm going to ditch my friends for her. But if it gets me across the finish line of a movie of a young woman discovering her sexuality before you, then I have to consider it a success, Josh.
Yes. A big win. Big win.
There you go.
Josh, what's your number 10?
So this one, I believe I recommended this on a Piecing It Together episode about something else. And it is The Feeling That the Time for Doing Something Has Passed from Joanna Arnau, writer, director, and star. And this is, she's young-ish, I guess. I think in her mid to late 20s, or maybe early in her early 30s even. I mean, part of the plot here is that she's this sort of aimless woman who's guiding through life, and she's not discovering her sexuality. She's definitely already discovered it and is in these BDSM relationships. And in a year when something like Baby Girl, that's very sensationalistic, which I thought was fine, that got a lot of attention, I think this movie is a much more interesting, nuanced, and more entertaining exploration of these kinds of relationships. And it really shows how they are relationships, right? It's not just like titillating, exciting, boundary pushing. It is two people communicating with each other, talking about what they want. And it's just one part of this woman's life. It's not like this is a movie that's just her constantly having kinky sex. It's also about her shitty job, and it's about her relationship with her parents, and it's about her living situation and all this stuff. And so it's kind of episodic, and you could call it a little aimless, but it's also very dryly funny, and I just thought it really worked very, very well. People have compared it to Lena Dunham, and I enjoyed this more than say like Tiny Furniture or Girls, but it does have a similar sensibility, and I really liked it, and so hopefully Joanna Arnau will get a chance to do more. I think this may be her first feature film. I think she might have made a kind of hybrid documentary feature before this, but it's her first pure narrative.
Yeah, I do want to see this, and I like the top Letterboxd review, kind of like a collection of Garfield comic strips where Garfield is in a series of submissive relationships.
But of course, Garfield was the dom. Odie would be the sub in that situation. Josh, you have told me about it, but the way you described it, it's like, I like Girls a lot. I like Tiny Furniture a lot. In a way, it kind of sounds like I watched this Daisy Ridley movie this year. Sometimes I Think About Dying, which I don't.
It was good.
Yeah, I didn't think it worked all the way, but this sounds like a kind of similar thing, and I'm looking forward to watching it now. Josh, you've sold me on it, buddy.
All right.
Me too.
Cool.
My number 10 is Strange Darling from Las Vegas's JT Molnar, which I think is one of the best thrillers of the year. I think it uses its whole nonlinear storytelling to really great effect. I know it didn't work for everybody, but I felt the way that it constantly is recontextualizing everything you know about the story and about these characters played by Willa Fitzgerald is one of the best performances of the year, and Kyle Gallner, who's always great and everything. As it continues on, it just keeps changing and it keeps growing, and it just really hooked me in from beginning to end. I think craft-wise, this movie is like one of my favorites of the year for sure. Obviously, it's on this list, but I mean, the score, the sound design, the cinematography from Giovanni Ribisi in his new career, I guess. We'll see if he continues doing more. I think there's just so much to love about this movie. And I know later we'll be doing our top 3 scenes. I decided to keep them all to movies that aren't on my top 10, but I almost was going to put the breakfast cooking scene as one of my 3 scenes because that just looked like heaven to me.
I'm going to let Josh take this because I think Josh has really broken this down in a very, really expertly thought out way. And I agree with you, but here's my issue. And I agree with Josh. Like, I didn't dislike this movie, and I'm always happy for a UNLV grad and Las Vegas native to kick ass, and he's getting a ton of praise. And I got to give him a ton of credit because he stuck to his guns. Like when they wanted to cut this linearly, and he said he would take his name off of it. However, the marketing on this thing is you'll never see the twist coming. Literally, there's only one twist that could be coming in this, and the whole movie hinges on it. So if you're like, okay, well, there's a twist and you figure it out, it kind of ruins the movie for you.
Just to respond to that really quick before you continue, I actually did not see a trailer going into this.
Oh, so you had the...
Yeah, I had the much better experience going into this movie.
Yeah, because so I had that in college when like Blair Witch Project came out and we didn't know anything about it. We saw an advanced screening and I was like, is this real? You know, so that was great. But yeah, that kind of brought it down for me. The cinematography I really do like, but you know, this whole, what does it say at the beginning? Shot on 35 millimeter. Like we're patting ourselves on the back. Like, come on, let's move on from that.
Yeah, there was a great Letterboxd review of this that it was like, oh, you shot this on 35 millimeter? Should we call Quentin Tarantino? like it's a little self-satisfied. And I feel like that tone suffuses the entire movie. I don't want to say bad things about JT Molnar because I like Jason. I'm really happy to see someone from Vegas succeed on this level. And I've interviewed him a couple times. I interviewed him for this movie and for his first movie, Outlaws and Angels, which is way worse than this. And he's super nice. And, you know, he comes back to Vegas every year to work on his family's haunted house. Like, 100%.
Freakling Brothers, shout out.
Freakling Brothers. Yeah. I mean, and then that I think working on that has really like influenced him as a filmmaker, and all of that is great. This movie is, to me, not great. And I know a lot of people were blown away by it. Dave, you're certainly not the only one.
Sure.
But it's also something that, like, the more I think about, the less and less I like it. I think the nonlinear structure is just a way to obscure the fact that the story is not at all interesting. Again, the self-satisfied nature of, like, look at the coolness of this is really irritating. There is a sort of, I'm sure, unintentional but clear undertone of misogyny to the way the story plays out.
I've heard people say that.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more it just irks me. So, but good for JT Molnar. I mean, you know, it's you can't really talk about it without ruining the twist.
You kind of have to spoil the ending, but it has
I don't know if we want to do that on
stuff.
this. I know we usually would spoil stuff, but this is maybe not the place to do it.
We'll talk about it after the show, Jason. But
no, I mean, I wish JT Molnar the best. I know he just wrote but isn't directing a Stephen King adaptation that Francis Lawrence is going to direct. I really look forward to that. It's a King book I really liked called The Long Walk.
Yeah.
Like, go JT Molnar. Not so much this movie.
So I didn't dislike it. I just feel like it was ruined beforehand, and I don't know how clever it would have been had I not known that. But if I was, you know, we just brought up the Freakling Brothers. Why? You got to give this guy a green light to remake The Funhouse, the Tobe Hooper movie from 1981. That's a perfect fit for him, you know?
Yeah. I'd watch it.
I mean, I think there's a lot of potential for him to do cool stuff. I just found this movie frustrating.
Jason, what's your number 9?
Okay, it just worked out that my other animated pick on this is right here. Number 9 is Flow, Latvian movie, I believe, right, Josh?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Man, this movie is beautiful, and we saw a lot of beautiful animation this year. But it's amazing when you look at like all these kind of like, hey, we're doing a $200 million animated movie, and then this tiny little movie of Latvia comes out about this cat who seemingly survives a climate apocalypse type event. There's no humans around, and it's just surviving. And there's no words in it, obviously, and it's with its little friends, a kookaburra, and some dog.
Capybara.
Kookaburra, capybara. You and Scarlett, my daughter, can both correct me on that one. A capybara. He's got some dogs with them, or she's got some dogs with her, and some other animals. And I just thought, one, like, it's beautiful. Like, it is maybe the most beautiful animation I've seen this year. 2, it's a nice 90-minute, keeps you the whole time, and you really get invested in these characters. And whether it's the scene with the herons attacking the other heron, or the cat struggling to get back to the boat some points in times, like I really love this movie. I hope it at least gets a nod for Best Animated Picture, and I'd be really happy if it won.
Yeah, I'm with you too. I love this movie as well. It didn't quite make my top 10, but it's probably an honorable mention for me. And yeah, obviously as a animal lover, it's such a beautiful movie, and the fact that they don't Disneyify it at all, like they're just animals, just going around doing their thing, working off instinct, is just awesome.
And I like the ending as well, because it's there's it lets you fill in the blanks. It doesn't, it's not all like, let's hug and, hey, the earth is fine and we're all going to make it.
Yeah, for sure. Josh, did you like Flow? Did you see it?
I did see it. I did not particularly care for it, but it's not something that I'm not gonna mount an argument against this movie, because it's so like lovable, and I'm not an animal lover at all, and so I kind of, for maybe 10 minutes, I was like, oh, this looks cool. And it's kind of, peaceful and calming. And then it just bored me, and it felt like watching a screensaver. And
it is not peaceful and calming at all. There is so much angst in this film.
Yeah. I don't know, because I can't emotion. Like, for me, I wish they had Disneyfied it, because I have no emotional investment in animals that are just animals. I just don't. I never felt the peril or the suspense or anything like that. To me, it was just kind of like nice little images washing over me that I got tired of.
Josh Bell hates everything, especially animals.
Yeah, I know. So Josh's problem with it is his lack of ability to connect to love, is what he's saying.
No, because I feel like it's not relatable. It's not identifiable, because they're not humans, and I can't connect with what's going on there. So I think that makes it tougher for me to get invested in it.
Well, Josh, with the new administration coming in and the rollback of every environmental law, don't worry, in 3 years, you'll be able to relate to it when we go through our own climate apocalypse.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, but there were no humans. They're all gone. I'll relate to it by being dead, apparently.
It'll be
the way
fun.
that movie plays out.
Josh, what's your number 9?
So my number 9 is a very, very dark movie about a man who murders children. And it's called Red Rooms, French-Canadian film from director Pascal Plante. And it actually really is not mainly about the man who murders children. He is on trial for committing these murders and also live streaming them online to even sicker, well, debatably sicker people who want to watch them. But the main character is this sort of enigmatic woman who becomes obsessed with this serial killer, or alleged serial killer, and is attending his trial every day and is going online to kind of seek out information on the dark web about his crimes, and also about the families of the victims, and to possibly, we don't really know what exactly she's going to do. And Juliette Gariépy, who plays this character, is fantastic, in part because she gives you almost nothing, but just enough that you're like, what is going on with this person? What is happening in this sick woman's head? And she's very Patrick Bateman-esque. I mean, there's this clearly a movie that's influenced heavily by American Psycho. She is a sort of part-time fashion model, and she's obsessed with working out, and she has this very like modern, minimalist, super fancy apartment. And, you know, you get the idea, and she trades crypto, which of course is what Patrick Bateman would be doing if he lived in 2024. And you get the impression that the sort of modern life and being online has warped this woman's sensibilities to the point where she's detached, but she's also really reveling in sort of messing with people related to this serial killer. And she befriends this more demonstrative, poorer young woman who is kind of almost in love with this killer, and they form this weird bond. And a lot of it is sort of hard to grasp onto, but I found it all fascinating, and it's definitely fucked up. There's one moment especially where you kind of are like, oh my God, is she going to do this? Is she going to do this? And then she does it, and it's horrible, but it's also kind of awesome. So it's definitely a movie for sickos, but I, as we just established with my previous comments, am that way. So Red Rooms is my number 9.
Yeah, I liked it too. It's definitely for sickos, like you said. I also think the score is great. Really dissonant, you know, lots of distortion and all kinds of stuff going on there. But yeah, it's a tough one to like kind of watch. It's just not because I'm like disturbed by it, but just because it's just this one thing happening. Like you just kind of have to be along for the ride.
Right. Like I said, it's a little hard to grasp onto, but I really felt a lot of American Psycho vibes. And we watched that, of course, for Awesome Movie Year this year. And it was fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
This is, you know, I don't have access to this one just yet, but it is on my watch list. I heard Adam Naiman, the Canadian film critic, talk about it. I think it was his favorite movie of the year. And it just sounds super intriguing. And this year's Anatomy of a Fall, except meets Longlegs or something like that. So,
fair. Maybe.
Sure. So. Speaking of which, good transition there, Jason. Number 9 is Longlegs for me. You know, it is the most memed movie of the year, and that counts for something as far as I'm concerned. I had so much fun with this movie because of just the whole online presence of Nicolas Cage's whole character and just everything that went on with it. But I also loved the movie. I know Josh and I were kind of in the minority on really loving Gretel and Hansel a few years ago from Osgood Perkins. But this kind of continues in somewhat of a similar vibe of just like a very dark and kind of messed up and bizarre, kind of satanic kind of movie with lots of really intriguing visual style, and everything is just perfectly put together. It turns into like a whole kind of horror-esque detective film. Micah Monroe is fantastic in it, and I think there's just so many layers to her character that I really do feel like a lot of people just aren't kind of digging into everything going on with her in this movie. I think they're all just kind of stuck on Nicolas Cage, who is also just so much fun to watch. So I kind of don't blame them. But also Alicia Witt is fantastic in it, one of the best supporting performances of the year. And I know some people felt this movie was all style and not much else going on, and I don't know. I don't really agree with that. I feel like there is a lot to kind of dig into with the way Longlegs is kind of using everybody in his orbit, and there's just a lot of really interesting things, I think, at play in the screenplay here. And yeah, I don't know. I think also the fact that a movie like this became such a huge hit, like pretty much based off of the Nicolas Caginess of it all, is really fascinating and awesome and just like a fun success story of the year.
So it's been a great year for horror breakthrough movies, and we've seen a lot of kind of cool, like off the beaten path versions. I have one as an honorable mention later, but dude, this movie, I'm waiting. And then the explanation is such bullshit. I'm like, dude, give me a break. This explanation could have been anything. And I know that's the style and the deal and blah, 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 but it just totally didn't work for me. And I waited 85, 95 minutes for it. And then when it comes, it's just like, wah, wah. Like it just could have been anything. And none of it made any sense. And it took me right out of the movie. I do agree with you on the performances. You know, you're talking about digging into how Longlegs uses people, but they don't really dig into all that much. You know, you kind of get to that one scene in the hospital with the former victim patient, whatever. But I just felt like it left too much on the table and totally flat ending. And that is what separated a lot of movies for me this year from like things that could have been great or could have been on my list to like totally just like a lot of movies went 2/3 of the way and just didn't land. And like and later in my list, I have a lot of movies where it's like, yes, this really was there, and then it stuck the landing. And this one just did not stick the landing for me.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm with Dave. Though I like this a lot. It's not on my list, but I definitely liked it, and I love Osgood Perkins, and I think that, Jason, I know you're always big on logic and things fitting together, but I think if you were watching this movie for the explanation, then yes, it's not surprising that you were disappointed, because this does run on vibes, and I think that's what Osgood Perkins is great at. And there's actually a lot more, I feel like, plot coherence to this movie than there is to his other movies, which, I mean, you go back to like I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, and there's just vibes to that, and it's great. 100%. It's really, really well done. So I think if you feel that, if you're on that wavelength, then it's not going to really matter what the explanation is. I agree that it doesn't like all fit together perfectly or whatever. And maybe that was a little disappointing because they do spend a lot of time explaining things. But in a weird way, I feel like the convoluted nature of the explanation is sort of part of the point. So overall, I did really like this. I actually rewatched that scene, Jason, that you were mentioning with Kiernan Shipka as the one survivor who's in the mental institution, because I wrote an article about all of her work this year, and so good. I mean, it made me think I should watch the whole movie again. I didn't have time for that, but that one scene is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's move on to number 8. Jason, what do you got?
Number 8 is, I think, the only movie probably on my list that neither of you guys have seen. So hooray for me. I got you. So I was at the Cordillera Film Festival this year, and this movie, The Everything Pot, was showing, starring Lisa Edelstein, who is and Eric Griffin, two people who you would never see as leads in a movie, right? And that's the beauty of doing a $250,000 movie. You get to see a woman like a Julia Louis-Dreyfus, but not as famous, like take the lead on something and just kill it. And this movie is really simple and really effective. It's about a couple who gives a wedding gift to one of the wife's like kind of former coworkers, right? Or she used to be the boss, and like he kind of idolized her. And the gift is basically an Instant Pot, right? And then the couple kind of breaks up, and and then she wants the Instapot back or whatever, or he wants the Instapot back. And it's literally, that's the entire plot of the movie. It's about these two couples, their relationships with each other, how they see each other. Does he have a crush on her? Does the older man have a crush on the younger woman? Like, does she have a crush on him? And it's just a nice little relationship dramedy. And it really worked. I'm guessing the fact that I saw it in a nice film festival setting helped. But man, we talk about like Nicole Holofcener and people like that. And like, we don't get a lot of movies like that. So when we get one like this and it works, like, it's just wonderful. So when that comes out, watch The Everything Pot. Tell me if I'm crazy or not. But I really liked it. And it's funny and charming and just really nice.
Right on.
Yeah, that has not been released, so we would not have gotten the chance to see it, but maybe
in
it
your
will
face, Josh.
Well, I feel like it shouldn't count. Honestly, I would not put a movie on the list that has not been released, but it's Dave's podcast, so he can have the final say. I will certainly check this out when I have the chance to.
Yeah, definitely. And as you know, release date fumbling all over the place, that's a big thing for me. So I understand Jason wanting to include it on here, and I've included things from previous years that technically are this year but aren't this year. I don't know. It never makes any kind of sense. But
well, yeah, I can't keep up with what's going on and what's not. It's directed by and written by Charisse Dorff, and I hope she has I hope this movie gets out there so it's on more lists than just mine, where Josh can be like, you stink.
How many people this year have Robot Dreams on their top 10?
And they shouldn't, because it was not released initially this year. Dave, as we were talking about, I had a movie on my list for months until I discovered it actually was initially released last year, and I took it off.
I'm just saying June.
What movie was it?
Well, I might mention it in the honorable mentions later. just to throw it in there. And I talked about it on the first time watches episode, which I think is coming out later than this. But well, I'll give it another shout out later.
Do you want me to replace it with my number 11, Josh? Would that make you feel better?
It's Dave's call. It's Dave's podcast.
Nah, I like that you gave this a shout out. So yeah, it's fine. Josh, what do you have for number 8?
So my number 8 film is His Three Daughters, from writer-director Azazel Jacobs, who I've always really liked. And I was glad to see this movie getting more attention because I feel like his films have kind of been under the radar a bit. His last film, French Exit with Michelle Pfeiffer, which I believe was my number 1 film a few years ago, got not very good reviews even, and I thought it was so good. So it's really nice that this movie has gotten so much acclaim and has been successful. I mean, as far as a film like this can be, it ended up as a Netflix original after premiering at festivals, and it did kind of briefly get into the Netflix top 10. So hopefully people were watching it. It is so well acted. It's so emotionally affecting. Carrie Coon, Natasha Lyonne, Elizabeth Olsen, all really, really, really good as these sisters who return to their childhood home where their father is kind of on his last moments as he's dying. And they go through a lot of issues that they have as siblings and working through their grief in anticipation. And it's almost entirely just within this apartment, maybe a little bit outside, but it's fascinating to watch. And I think he's really good at teasing out these complex family relationships with honest emotion, but also with a level of artifice that is appealing. You start watching this movie and the dialogue sounds very mannered, and I think you just got to get on his wavelength, and that's the case with most of his work, but I definitely am, and I'm glad that more people are now.
Hey, Dave, I'll let you jump in, but I'm just going to say this appears later on my list, so I'm pretty much with you, Josh. Yeah, nice. You had recommended this one to me, and it was my first Azazel Jacobs movie, and I was pretty much blown away. The acting, the writing, and I'll talk more about that later. Really, really good movie.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, I actually haven't gotten a chance to see it yet, so I'm looking forward to it. And I did like French Exit, even though most people didn't, and Josh, it was his number 1. But
right.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Just haven't had a chance yet.
I'm just happy to get the further endorsement for French Exit. That's good.
There you go. Number 8 for me is Smile 2. I feel like I liked the first Smile in 2022 more than just about anybody, but it was a surprise hit, even though everybody acted like they didn't like it after the fact. But then they made this sequel, which is so much better than the first one, and I feel like everybody kind of came around to it on this time around. It just takes the same basic premise, but like turns it up to 11. It's now about this pop star, Sky Riley, played by Naomi Scott, who is just fantastic and so believable as an actual pop singer. Her songs are also fantastic, which kind of helps with selling the whole thing. But just the creepiness of this, I mean, I'm not the biggest horror fan in the world, but like this really does it, these two movies. I think that Parker Finn is just fantastic at making something that just really gets under your skin is just totally unsettling. I thought that this movie went in some really like insanely dark directions in what it's trying to show us about the life of a pop star. And I mentioned this in my Letterboxd review, but I feel like it's as much a sequel to Smile as it is to Andrew Dominik's Blonde, the Marilyn Monroe movie. Just kind of showing just how horrific this life can be once everybody just gloms onto a person. But I really thought this was just an amazing win, and I'm still listening to the soundtrack now, and the score is, along with the soundtrack, one of my favorite scores of the year too.
So Sky Riley or Lady Raven, which would you...
Definitely Sky Riley wins this one, unfortunately for the Shyamalan family, but yeah.
Yeah, I liked it too. I didn't like it as much as you did, or as much as a lot of people seem to have, but I agree it's better than the first one. It takes that premise to a new level, where the first one kind of just remixed a lot of familiar horror elements in a decent way, but this one does more with it. Naomi Scott was great. She was definitely on my best actress list this year, and I think that is a huge part of it. But the songs are good. It's a little too long, I think, and the ending I'm not sure how I feel about, but overall, yeah, very impressive in terms of horror movies this year.
I'll have to check it out. I have watched more horror movies this year, but did not get around. I still haven't seen the first one. So, but shout out to all the smilers at the baseball game. That's still one of my favorite marketing campaigns of the last 5 years or so.
Definitely. What do you got for number 7, Jason?
All right. I don't know if you guys have heard of this movie either. You probably haven't seen it. It's a movie called Dune Part 2. This is such a step up from Dune. I thought the first Dune, like Dune, the first one of Villeneuve, Denis Villeneuve, was beautiful looking, but didn't have much in the way of story. And I know that's part of kind of what he wanted to do. This one is an action epic adventure with some, great performances throughout. Really, the scope of the world is huge, and he pulls it off. Those sandworm scenes where they're kind of diving and coming up is really impressive. If you haven't seen it, I don't really care if I'm going to spoil it because, it was a huge movie, but it's nice to see Paul Atreides, our hero, kind of turn towards the dark side, go to his Darth Vader route. The motivation all works for me. I like the interpersonal dynamics between, Rebecca Ferguson as the mom and Zendaya and Javier Bardem. Everything he says is hilarious in this movie, where like, no matter how far the goalpost moves, he's like, well, it has to move. He's the savior. So of course this makes sense, right? That's great. I know we're going to get more Florence Pugh, Leah Seydoux, and hopefully more Christopher Walken in the third one. But I just thought, as far as like the big movies this year, this one really delivered. Home run, Dune Part 2. That's my pick.
I'm with you, Jason. And as we talked about on this podcast, I was not a fan of the first one. It looked amazing, but I thought the story was boring as hell. And I thought that they just did everything right with this one. And it didn't make my list, but it's definitely like my top 20.
Yeah, I liked it a lot too. And I find it weird, Dave, that you could dislike the first one and like this one, because to me, I like them both. I think I like the first one a little more, or maybe just because it was a little newer and it struck me more. I don't remember if it was on my top 10 list, but it was probably closer to it. But to me, it's all this kind of continuum of the same stuff going on. So I liked the first one. I liked that there was more of that stuff in this one. And it is more action packed, I suppose, but I never found the story in the first one uninteresting. And in fact, I remember getting to the end of the first one, and at the time it was like, is there going to be another one, right? Unlike some of these 2-part things or whatever, where they're shooting them all at once. This was, they made the first half and they hoped they would be able to make the second half, and getting to that sort of like unresolved ending and thinking, you know what, honestly, if there wasn't a second one, I kind of like the way that this has ended here, and it's good that they made another one. But I don't know. I like them both. I think they're both really good.
I mean, Josh, what you're saying, I think we obviously know there's a third one coming.
Yes.
But had they ended it with this and it's just like, wait, what happened? Paul Atreides is now just a corporate dick who's just a power hungry, just kind of ruler. That would have been a good ending too.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, and this does get you to the end of the story of the first book, I believe. And then the third movie will be based on the next book. And there's so many books.
I'm sure there are. Yeah. And we have the series too.
So, right. They're already adapting some of that stuff in that series, which I don't think any of us have watched. No. But I'm pro Dune.
Yeah, for sure. Josh, what's your number 7?
So unlike Jason, I am not leaving out documentaries because I wanted to talk about this movie that I thought was really good. And it's my number 7. It's Girl State, which I'm shocked that this movie hasn't gotten more attention given how much praise Boys State, the previous film from Jesse Moss and Amanda McBain on this topic, had gotten, and deservedly so. I thought Boys State was really good. I think this one is actually probably a bit better. It is once again shot at this annual event for high school students where they put together kind of a mock government, and these events are segregated by gender. And I believe the boys one started much earlier, as these things go, but there has also been this long running girls one, and this one is shot in a location where they have the boys and the girls in the same place, although the events are separated. And so in addition to all of the fascinating stuff that was going on in Boys State, looking at the sort of toxic process of politics and looking at this younger generation and what they're facing for their future. It also deals with the sexist dynamic going on here and the resources that the girls do or do not get compared to the boys. And in both cases, I think one of the things that Moss and McBain are really, really good at is finding people among the hundreds of girls who attend this event, finding people who are just fascinating to watch, and you want to watch them for the entire 90 minutes of this movie, and you would want to watch them for a whole TV series if it existed. So I just think that this is as good as Boys State and has a few extra layers. And I hope people, especially if you like that first one, will watch it on Apple TV. So Girls State, preview of this documentary thing if we do it.
Boys State, awesome. Excited for Girls State. I think I'll like it just as much, but only say it's 77% worthy of it. So,
yeah. Well, then you're really enhancing the themes of the film there. So that's a way to go.
Yeah, no, this is definitely on my to watch list before we get to our doc episode. But I'm glad you brought it up. And you're talking about how they pick these people. I think we both know, like, they shoot probably 100 kids before then. They're like, oh, here's the story. Here's the right four to tell. Yeah. And if they're able to get as interesting a character as like that campaign manager in Boys State, who was just who bottom line politics, I don't care who I have to burn to get my goals, then it's going to be a fascinating watch.
Yeah, I think that it is.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. I enjoyed Boys State, so maybe if we do that episode, I will try to get this one in.
No, we're doing it. We have to.
It's just going to be Jason talking to himself if he has to.
Yeah. So, my number 7 is Conclave. This was a last-minute addition to my list. I really liked it when I first saw it, but I just rewatched it the other day, and I was just like, yeah, this definitely has to be on my list. It's so damn good. Ralph Fiennes is fantastic, but so is the rest of the cast. Everything is just hitting at 100 on this movie. The score is one of my favorite scores of the year. The sound design, the cinematography. I think that Edward Berger has put together just something that is just so special and unique. And it's kind of a hard film to classify when you're kind of like telling people about it. It's like, it's a drama, but they market it as a thriller, although it's kind of a thriller, not really. It's also darkly comic in a way, especially considering these old priests kind of bickering with one another through the whole thing. And so there's just so much to like here. And I think the script is just whip sharp, and everything that goes on in it, you just hang on every move. And as the votes kind of go from one potential new pope to the next and back and forth, and everything about it I thought was just absolutely great, as well as one of the best endings, I think. And also just, to kind of give a shout out to one of my honorable mentions, speaking of Ralph Fiennes, The Return, he has just had such a great year, 2 incredible performances from him. So this kind of goes to both of these movies.
Ralph Fiennes just doesn't miss at this point, and I don't think he's going to win Best Actor this year. And I would probably put him at like 4th, based on, that's got nothing to do with him. There were just other performances that kind of blew me away. But Conclave is awesome. Probably top 15 or 20 for me. I do see it as a political thriller. It's almost like a throwback to those 70s movies, but also Edward Berger, from going from like the battlefield of war and that giant scope to the battlefield of choosing a new pope in a very contained environment.
Yeah.
Really, really good. I do agree with everything you said. Like, all the supporting players bring it. Tucci, Lithgow, all the kind of actors from around the world. And man, those strings really ratchet up the tension. So I would expect to see the score on here, a top 10 score list. I like this movie. I think you might be right. Maybe I need to rewatch it to even get more out of it a second time. But this movie's really good.
Yeah, I liked it too. I didn't have it on my top 10. I think maybe expectations were raised. I watched it not that long ago. Well, probably Jason did as well, in our catch-up efforts. But yeah, it's really effective. I'm sort of back and forth on how I feel about the twist, but like Strange Darling, we won't get into that. But overall, yeah, I agree with you. Very good film.
So Josh, just to talk about that twist, at least here, like, there are breadcrumbs that lead you to a place where you're like, oh, okay, this makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So it works. If even if you don't like it, at least you see the logic of it.
Oh, right? No, I agree. Yeah. It's not a structural issue like with Strange Darling. It's sort of a thematic And I feel like I as I've thought about it and read some things about it, I'm more or less on board with it, and more so certainly than Strange Darling. But I just think it's there's stuff to unpack there, which is good, right? You want to be able to think about this after you watch it.
Well, and to not to get into the twist or anything, like we said, we're not spoiling things, but like it's not even the twist so much that I love about the ending; it's the aftermath of it. And so I think where it leaves things is really, really interesting. But yeah, I'm glad you guys both liked it. Let's go to number 6, Jason.
Number 6, Dave, halfway through. Josh already mentioned it. It's His Three Daughters, Azazel Jacobs. You mentioned all those lead actors. Just those three women just killing the game on this one. And the dad, who played the dad there, Josh?
Is it J.O. Sanders, I think is the actor's name?
Yeah, he's got a tough thing because he's got to play basically dead and out of it. And he's got this one sequence where if they fumbled it, the movie's ruined. And it's done so deftly and expertly where you kind of I don't know how to describe it without spoiling it, but you get to see the things that he says or wants to say to his three daughters. And you're like, what, huh? What's happening? And then it just all works. And that to me is like an example of something where you're taking a big risk structurally and it pays off and it adds to the end of the movie. Yeah, and the three of them, just the interaction between the three and the motivations. First of all, hooray, Elizabeth Olsen. It's nice to see you like showcase your skills that we first like saw in Martha, Maylene, whatever that one was called. But like, she's a great actor, and all we've seen her do is play Wanda lately. And like, not to say there's anything wrong with that, but we just know there's so much more that she has to offer. Natasha Lyonne is on just like a career, kind of skyrocket since Russian Doll, and she's earned it. And Carrie Coon is not very likable, but very good as being not very likable here. This movie is really a great kind of character drama, and yeah, I'm really glad I watched it. Good movie. Number 6, Josh.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it so much too, and I'm with you on that scene with the father. And I thought it worked really, really well too. And it was something that was surprising to me because the way the movie has gone thus far, you think this guy he's just going to be off screen the whole time. And then it makes such an impact. And that kind of magical realist approach is something that I think Jacobs does really well, and that he does a lot of in French Exit, to go back to that. But really, to me was really successful there, and I didn't expect it in this movie because it's a bit more naturalistic, even though the dialogue is very stylized. And so when that happened, I was really pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, if it doesn't work, the movie kind of gets diminished. But since it did work so well, it heightens, it brings it to a new level. Really expertly done.
Right. No, I agree.
So, Josh, what's your number 6?
Well, number 6 is a movie about a young woman discovering her sexuality. Yeah. It's called Nosferatu, starring Lily Rose Depp as a young newlywed who is dealing with some issues with her ex, who is an ancient undead vampire and has been reawakened by her husband accidentally, played by Nicholas Hoult. So that sounds silly, but that is kind of what this movie is actually about. And one of the things I think that makes it unique that Robert Eggers brings to this story that's been told so many times. I mean, not only has the specific Nosferatu approach that F.W. Murnau created in 1922, been remade by Werner Herzog in 1979, but it is based on Bram Stoker's Dracula, which of course has been interpreted hundreds of times. And like, how many more times do we need to see that? But I think what Robert Eggers does is show you that, well, at least one more time we do need to see it, because we need to see what Robert Eggers can do with it. And he brings that meticulous detail, period detail. This is set in 1838 Germany, brings that he's known for, but also this focus on the Ellen character played by Lily Rose Depp and the sort of abusive relationship dynamics with her, and the way it sets up a background for her and Count Orlok the vampire that doesn't exist in the other versions. And just really, really well acted. She gives this incredibly physical performance where she's just writhing and yelling, and the whole time it's just like, oh my God, what is wrong with you in an exciting way. And then there's a lot of dry humor. Willem Dafoe, who of course is always working with Robert Eggers, is very amusing as the slightly nutso Van Helsing type figure. Aaron Taylor Johnson, who, Dave, I expect Craven to be on your list later, but
yeah, sure.
Aside from that, he's really good in this as the kind of like blowhard, overconfident, like vampires could not be real. This is a hysterical woman character, and does a really good job with it. So I really like Robert Eggers, and this is a movie that I think was so heavily anticipated. I think it's been 10 years that he's been saying he's going to make this movie, and it really lived up to what I hoped for from it.
I saw a tweet that said Aaron Taylor Johnson is the most relatable character because he just wants everyone out of his house.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I liked it. I have a strong feeling I'm going to like it more the second time I watch it. I think that there's a lot there that maybe I'm not giving it credit for. And yeah, I definitely want to watch it again sometime.
Yeah, I mean, it's like top of the list for me to watch. I haven't watched it yet. I heard the criticisms where it's just like, hey, it's just a remake of the Burnout film and it doesn't go any deeper than that. And I've heard the opposite of people loving it like you. Anytime Robert Eggers makes a movie, it's going to be worth at least checking out. So I'm pumped to check this one out. Josh, you mentioned the craftsmanship, like in the Northman, where they're like rebuilding Viking ships. So did Robert Eggers dig up a vampire to star in this film?
The great thing about this movie is between the performance from Bill Skarsgård, the makeup, the special effects, I would believe that he had dug up a real vampire because he looks so horrifically grotesque in this movie.
And nothing like Bill Skarsgård.
Right. And even the way he speaks, I think I said in my review, it sounds like he's dragged every word up from like the depths of hell just to get it out. And it's great. I mean, yeah, to have played this character and Pennywise, I mean, I would be afraid of Bill Skarsgård to like speak to him. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Maybe we need Alexander Skarsgård, the Northman, to fight him off.
Yeah, I think so.
I'd watch that. My number 6 is Immaculate, which I wanted to mention in adaptation. Screenwriter Robert McKee tells Charlie Kaufman that if you wow them in the end, you've got a hit. Even if there's problems, flaws, whatever, if you wow them, they're all going to love it. And this movie has the best ending of the year, period. I really liked Michael Mohan's last film, and I think Sydney Sweeney is fine. She's not the best actor in the world, but I think this might be her best work. And as far as these kinds of like pregnancy horror type movies or nun horror type movies, I think it's like it par for the course until it kind of goes off the deep end. Jason was just talking about explanations and something like Longlegs. When we get to the explanation that, well, I'm not going to spoil it, but just to say that it kind of gets a little bit sci-fi-ish and it goes a little off the rails and gets just really fun. I feel like people didn't give this movie a chance, and it's so much fun. I think that it gets super, super over the top in the kind of way that I'm always looking for in movies. And I feel like people didn't give it a chance because of Sydney Sweeney specifically. And I don't think that's fair.
I don't know. Is that true, or did this one kind of break through a little because of her?
It did well.
It was a big hit that was well reviewed. So I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know. I feel like I've seen so many people say that it's really bad. I don't know. Is it really that well reviewed?
You're looking in the wrong place. I mean,
I guess so.
As far as critics go, yeah, it was well reviewed, and it definitely made a lot of money. I mean, I think this came out very, very early in the year, and did very well at the box office, especially compared to its budget, which I think was pretty small. So, and I liked it as well. So, 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. So that's not overwhelming acclaim, but that's pretty good from critics, I think.
That's so.
I agree. The ending's awesome. The ending is just very awesome. And I like that Sydney Sweeney is, I just mentioned Elizabeth Olsen, who spent, 12 years in Marvel world, right? Like Sydney Sweeney could, we saw her in Madam Web, right? Well, you saw it.
Unfortunately, we did.
But, but she's using her, capital, her Q rating, her popularity to take risks, especially in this genre. And I thought she was good. I didn't love this movie, but I'm glad I watched it, and I'm glad that she's out there making movies like this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I do think she's a good actor. I mean, I have never watched Euphoria, But I mean, when I've seen her in films, even if I haven't been crazy about the film overall, I feel like she's does well. I mean, and something like Reality from last year, which is a very, very different role for her. And I had my issues with that, but certainly her performance was very strong. So I'm happy to see her as long as it's not in Madam Web.
So Dave is saying she's not a good actor, and the movie didn't do well. But you know, he's
I think this is her best work.
You're
I thought that she was
your own pick, Dave.
I thought she was very good in this. So I'm just saying, I need to step offline is basically what it comes down to, because everybody online seems to think she's the worst thing in the world. So.
Dave, you also said that you're not the biggest horror movie person. First of all, I'm glad that this and Conclave were back to back. That's kind of a cool religious thing. But
yes.
In your top 10, that's at least 2 horror movies or 3. You have 3 so far.
I've said it multiple times. It has been a crazy good year for horror this year. So yeah, let's go to your number 5, Jason.
Super excited about this one. It's My Old Ass. A great movie. Dude, Aubrey Plaza, I feel like once a year makes an appearance on my list. Talk about an actor who's willing to take risks. I mean, this and Megalopolis. And, you know, this movie we know is like, they say it's, you know, she's the star of this, but she's not. She's the second lead in this. The star in this is child actor. Give me your name, Josh.
Maisie Stella.
Yeah, and she kills it. She's great. Everyone's great in this movie. It's a really cool premise where somehow the older version of Maisie Stella's character, played by Aubrey Plaza, is able to come back and see her and connect with her and talk to her. And this has another one of those situations where there's like a thread where it's like there's a, you know, the young man that she falls in love with. And she keeps saying, Aubrey Plaza keeps telling Maisie Stella, don't fall in love with this guy. Don't fall in love with this guy. And you're waiting, like, why not? And when it happens, it drops you. It gets you. It punches you right in the gut. And it really works. And it's funny and wonderful and charming and one of the best movie-going experiences I've had this year.
Yeah, I like this a lot too. It's on my honorable mentions. And I think Maisie Stella is fantastic. And it's a great breakthrough. I hope she continues to work. And Megan Park, the writer-director, I really liked her first film, The Fallout, with Jenna Ortega, which not a lot of people saw, and is much more serious than this film, but also really, really well done and sensitive, and also features Maddie Ziegler. It's interesting that you're talking about that ending, Jason, because to me, it was a case of, right, you're waiting for that other shoe to drop, and at a certain point, I'm like, oh, is this what's going to happen? Oh, I hope not. And then it was, and I feel like it handled it as best as it could, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, I wish that wasn't the direction they had gone in. So I was a little frustrated with it toward the end. And I think maybe as you're talking about, you know, it happens a lot with films where if at the end you're like, oh, I loved this until I didn't quite love it. I think it would have been much higher on my list if I had been more on board with it all the way through. But I've thought about it afterwards and I think liked it more. So it is really good. And I think people should watch it.
2 other little points I want to make about it. One, you know, Dave, a lot on piecing it together, and on Awesome Movie Year, we talk about environment. I love the environment, this kind of cranberry farm, right? In the, the Massachusetts rural.
It's Canada.
Area. In Canada. Okay. So, but a rural Canadian cranberry farm, beautiful, awesome. And then whenever Aubrey Plaza, there is one issue I had with it where like she just disappears. It's like, and they kind of just throw away the explanation of why she disappeared for so long. I didn't love that, but I do love whenever she's calling from the future and the apocalypse has clearly already happened. And she's just like, yeah, you know, could we do this? And like, oh no, you can definitely not go out past 10 PM in the future, you know, and they just are like, they're just saying it like this is common knowledge and stuff like that. So little fun things like that. Good movie. Watch it.
I have not seen it yet. I do want to see it though. So I will watch it.
It's on Amazon Prime right now, Dave.
Go watch it right now, Dave. We'll wait.
Yeah. Let's hit pause.
It's a short movie.
Josh, what's your number 5?
So my number 5 pick is Jeremy Saulnier's Rebel Ridge. I am shocked to have 2 Netflix originals on this list. So go Netflix, I guess. But yeah, I mean, screw you, Netflix, for putting this movie out with no promotion and not in any theaters. But thankfully, people found it anyway. I'm not the only one who loved this movie. It was certainly one of my most highly anticipated films for this year, as I think we've talked about on Awesome Movie Year. We did a whole episode on Murder Party, Jeremy Saulnier's first film, and I'm sure I've talked about him multiple times. I love his work, and this movie was delayed and delayed and delayed. They had to reshoot half of it because the lead actor dropped out, but it all worked out because Aaron Pierre, who is the lead in this movie, is fantastic. This is a breakout role for him as this military veteran who comes to this small southern town. All he wants to do is bail his cousin out of jail, and he gets hassled from the moment he arrives by this corrupt police department led by Don Johnson, who is so good as the villain in this film. And it's suspenseful, it is intelligent, it is well acted, it's got great action sequences. Anna Sophia Robb, who plays sort of the ally to the main character. She's a court clerk who is also trying to fight against injustice, but is facing a lot of adversity in that area. She's really good too. And I just am so happy to see Jeremy Saulnier back and doing this kind of thing that he's really good at. His previous film, Hold the Dark, was good, but not up to the standards of his earlier work. And this is absolutely up to those standards. So I hope it doesn't take him as long to make another film. And I really loved Rebel Ridge, and it's there on Netflix. Hopefully people will keep watching it.
I'm with you on all of that. I thought it was fantastic. It's one of my honorable mentions, and also a scene I was considering including for my favorite scenes. The whole acronym scene where you finally get that realization of just how much of a badass this guy is. And
yes,
Aaron Pierre is going to be such a huge star.
Yeah, I mean, I know he's playing Green Lantern, so, he's on the way and whatever with superheroes, as Jason was just talking about with Elizabeth Olsen. But hey, get paid. I'm all for it.
I'm not against someone being in a superhero movie. I like good superhero movies if they're there. It's just I don't want them getting stuck in that world for 20 years. You know?
Right.
I agree. Like, we're all on the same page. Honorable mention for me too. I think I'm talking about the same scene, Dave, where that's that trade off, that handoff, right? And you guys know I love that Southern Fried Justice, that type of like grindhouse movie, and nobody is better for it than Jeremy Saulnier at this point. This movie is awesome. And Don Johnson, when Josh told me he put him down as like one of his picks for best supporting actor in like the whatever Critics Society, I was like, that's a very inspired pick, and I love that. And this movie is great. Totally good pick. Good pick, Josh.
Thank you. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Jason.
And Jason was the guest on the Piecing It Together episode. So my number 5 is A Real Pain from director Jesse Eisenberg. This movie just absolutely, I think, hit me, emotionally more than any movie this year. I just, right from the get-go, just these two cousins played by Eisenberg as well as Kieran Culkin, the two of them just going on this trip to a Holocaust remembrance tour in Europe after their grandma dies. And just, Kieran Culkin's just kind of a pain in the ass, but they also kind of love each other, and just all the things that kind of come out between the two of them and all their past and the way you learn about them and their relationship throughout the movie, and the way they interact with, the other people on this Holocaust tour that they're on. And Kieran Culkin is probably my single favorite performance of the year. He's so damn good in this movie. And as this movie just kept going, it really just kept getting better and better for me. And it was really a big surprise because when I first saw the trailer, I was like, that looks cool. I'd be interested in checking that out. But once it got me, it just did not let go, and just welled up the whole freaking movie.
Yeah, I like this movie. It would probably be in my top 20. I am a big fan of the walk and talk movies, and this was a cool way to do it with the cousins as opposed to a romance or whatnot. I thought the relationship was really good. I agree, dude. Eisenberg was really deft with the way he handled when they went to the concentration camps, and the sound kind of stopped and you just see rooms of shoes, or you see the kind of the gas chambers, just horrible stuff that really gets you. This movie I really like. It's really good. As I've posted, I'm very angry that they could somehow claim that Kieran Culkin is a supporting actor. There's clearly two leads here, and his character is the one that stirs the entire pot. So I don't even think it should be allowed that he's allowed to. He should be up for Best Actor.
There should be a law. Jason's going to get Congress to pass a law.
Let's do it.
I would write in for that. Yes.
But I mean, like, I wouldn't be upset if he was up for Best Actor. There's no way he should be up for Best Supporting Actor. There's clearly 2 leads. And it's a really good movie. And I think it also diminishes, not that there's anything wrong with being a supporting actor, of course not, but like it diminishes what that role meant to the movie by saying it's a supporting performance.
I mean, none of that is a reflection of the quality of the movie.
No, that's why I'm saying I like the movie. I'm just saying, if Dave's going to talk about how Longlegs is the most memed movie of the year, I can talk about something culturally significant to this movie, but I do like this movie a lot.
Yeah, I don't like the movie, but I'm less angry about category fraud because I just don't think it's something worth getting angry over. So,
I'm angry. This is my hill, Joe.
It is. Clearly, we've had long discussions about this already.
And mine is release dates, so we all got our things. So,
I was anticipating watching this because it was very well reviewed. I mean, I think it had been at Sundance early this year, so that's been all year of people talking about how great Kieran Culkin is in it and how great the movie was. But I had a feeling it wasn't going to be for me, and I was right. I think I have a tough time with movies like this where from the moment that Kieran Culkin character appeared on screen, I was like, I hate this person and I want him to go away immediately. And there wasn't enough for me to grab onto otherwise to get over how unpleasant I found him and Jesse Eisenberg to a lesser degree. And that it was like I was trapped for 90 minutes with these people that all I wanted to do was get away from.
I can understand the Kieran Culkin character, but Jesse Eisenberg's playing a version of what we always see him in. So do you just hate Jesse Eisenberg? Or?
No, I like Jesse Eisenberg. And I think if it was that character and something else, it would have been fine. But I think adding that character, like you have the Kieran Culkin character who literally everything he did, I hated. And then this guy who's kind of whiny and I'm not crazy about him. And then that's all there is, really. I mean, there's some supporting characters who have tiny parts, the other people on the tour, but it's really just these 2 guys. And I just could not wait. It's a short movie, but it felt like it was 3 hours to me.
What if it was Eisenberg and Aaron Pierre going to a Holocaust Remembrance Museum?
Well, if Aaron Pierre was going to beat him up, and, then maybe I could go for it.
Sure. Jason, what's number 4?
Number 4 for me. Okay, I'm excited. I know both of you guys have talked to me about this movie. Dave definitely said I should watch it. I watched it last night and it already rocketed to number 4. Between the Temples. What a year for Jews, huh? Finally making some traction in Hollywood. So, but there's a lot of Jewish stories. And I thought this movie is 1, very, very funny. 2, put Schwartzman and Carol Kane up for Academy Awards for, lead actor and supporting actor. And 3, I just love the storytelling. It's awkward and could be cringe-inducing in the best possible way at certain points. But this to me is, I would describe it if you first fell in love with Jason Schwartzman and Rushmore, or if you love Harold and Maude, this is a great movie to see. And it's just very funny, very weird. You could tell they're improvising a lot and just going for it. I like the style. I like the pace. This is my favorite comedy this year. And man, I just love this movie. It's great. It's on Netflix right now. Between the Temples, I think it found somewhat of an audience. I hope it finds an even bigger audience. Just super fun. The characters are real. They feel real. It's kind of one of these, I don't want to call it a neighborhood movie, but it is a small town movie type thing. And it just did it for me from beginning to end. And dude, how about all that Jewish folk music in there? Really good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I loved it too. It's an honorable mention for me. And just a really fun movie. 2 amazing performances there. And go Jews.
Yeah, I didn't love it, but I did like it. And I liked it enough that I sort of wish that I liked it more because it seemed like it was really the kind of thing that I would like. And it's shot on 16 millimeter, which I think about to talk about shortly, and which is fantastic and just gives stuff a warm look. On the other hand, it has this style of cinematography where it's like constant close-ups, and it's part of the idea of making you uncomfortable, and it succeeded. I think I was so uncomfortable, especially there's a dinner scene here at the end of this movie that is like a concentrated version of a real pain, right? It's just all of that is so hard to watch, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. And that was a little much for me, but yeah, Carol Kane, Jason Schwartzman are great, and there's a lot of funny stuff, and it really, Jason, you're talking about like the small town, it really creates this very distinctive culture that you can like understand of this specific like synagogue with Robert Smigel as the rabbi and his daughter, and you know, the two moms that Jason Schwartzman's character has. You really feel like this distinctive world that the movie has created. So I wish I liked it more, but I did like it.
So first of all, inspired casting, Robert Smigel. You would never kind of think of that, right?
Yeah.
Also, you know, we knew Dolly De Leon from Triangle of Sadness, and she plays one of the moms, and she gets a lot of good run in there, right? She really is showcasing a lot of skills as a converted Jew who wants to be a power player in the temple. It's just very funny. Schwartzman, is he underrated at this point? Because, you know, he kind of meanders from thing to thing. He doesn't seem to care about the fame. I think this is some of his best work. I love this movie. I recommended it to my dad this morning, and just good stuff all the way through.
Yeah, Schwartzman had a year because he's really good in Queer, which I was not crazy about, but he is just he's like the comic relief in that movie, and he's just going for it in a very fun way. And then, you know, he's good at the family support too, because he's in Megalopolis and he's in The Last Showgirl. Yeah. And he just kind of shows up in small roles and is like, hey, cousin, here I am. What do you need me to do? And I like that about him.
He's genius at these throwaway lines that you might not, you know, realize. Like there's a scene in the diner where they get like the Mildred special, and the diner owner comes over and he's like, "Are you Mildred?" And he's like, "Not when the lights are on, right?" And then later on, he finds out he's eating a cheeseburger, you know, with the cheese inside, a Juicy Lucy as it's called, right? So he can't eat that because he's kosher. So he spits it out, and the diner owner comes over and he's like, "Everything okay?" He goes, "I'm fine, Mildred." You know, and just like little things like that, really fun. And I didn't know it was on 16 because they didn't put a sign up at the beginning of the movie. But it does look good. I do agree with your take on the cinematography. And again, the music really adds to this. Just a delightful film in my estimation. And that dinner scene you're talking about is very cringy, but I think it all works in the best way. Like it's not there because of that. It's there because it's earned and everything. And hey, Carol Kane, come on, man. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Josh, what's number 4?
Well, my number 4 is actually another movie that's all about awkwardness. It's Kit Zohar's This Closeness. And I think I talked about, speaking of Dave's frustration with release dates, Kit Zohar's first film, Actual People, which I absolutely loved. And I think I may have talked about it, but it didn't end up on a top 10 list because it had that kind of weird cusp and it didn't make it in the year that it was really released. But anyway, I recommend that as well. And I think she's a fantastic new voice. She's clearly very influenced by mumblecore, but also doing her own thing. And this movie is a little less mumblecore-ish. It's about this couple who are staying at an Airbnb, and they're staying basically in this guy's apartment, in this kind of awkward guy's apartment, and they're staying in a bedroom and he's staying in his bedroom. And the dynamic among these three people as the couple's relationship is sort of falling apart, and they're also dealing with the awkwardness of this guy and coming and going. And it's another film like His Three Daughters that is set entirely within this apartment. I mean, they leave the apartment and they go do stuff, but you only hear them talking about what they've done and kind of the aftermath of it. And I think she's really good at depicting these uncomfortable relationships in a way that feels honest and real. She's also a really good actor. She's the main star of this movie as well, as she was in her first film. And I was always I've been a huge fan of early mumblecore and later mumblecore. I'm, the one guy who'll defend Joe Swanberg through all of his weird permutations. And I think she's not just like the next generation of that. She's definitely doing her own thing, but I think this continues that super, super indie spirit. And on the one hand, I'd love for her to get more attention. On the other hand, I don't know if I want, to see what she ends up with trying to direct a mainstream rom-com or something. But this movie, really good. This Closeness.
I think it's on Mubi right now.
Yeah, I believe so.
I really liked Actual People. And, it's, when you get to this kind of mid-20s female filmmaker talking, about that generation. You feel like right now Emma Seligman gets a lot of the kind of shine, but I kind of like Kid Zohar movies more than that, I would say, as far as what I've seen. I'm excited to watch it, and I love that she just goes and makes movies. It doesn't matter if they're for $7 or $7 million. So shout out to Kid Zohar.
Yeah, I mean, actual people she made, I believe, when she was still a student at NYU, and just went and made a feature because she wanted to, and that's awesome.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I remember you talking about it, and it sounds good, so I'll have to check it out. Number 4 for me is Hundreds of Beavers. One of the most fun theatrical experiences of the year for me. Just live action Looney Tunes brought to life basically in this movie. It's so ridiculous, so silly, and such a testament to creative spirit, basically. Just having a true passion to try to make something like this, which must have just been the most impossible thing to put together. I actually watched the director's previous film, Lake Michigan Monster, and it's similar. It's like a similar idea of like cutting and pasting every single little bit of everything that was filmed, and trying to make a movie that's like disjointed in that way on purpose to make it look like a cartoon. And the leaps and bounds that him and his team kind of grew to make this movie just kind of shows that I think we're going to see more interesting things out of this mind, basically. But yeah, it's just such a fun movie, so funny. Its influences are on its sleeve, from like classic cinema to big budget blockbusters to cartoons, of course. And just watching a movie like this, if you're a fan of, what is possible in this medium, it's something that's just a real sight to behold. And, if you're a fan of anybody who kind of takes that kind of wacky cartoonishness and puts it into an actual movie, it's one that you just can't miss.
I really like this. I watched it with my daughter at one point. I think she said broski is crazy or something like that. But Josh, you always described it to me as a live action cartoon, which it really is. So cool, the way they build this world out. And I love the fact that all the animals are really just humans in beaver costumes, or mascot costumes, not just beaver costumes. I do keep a list of movies that have Christmas themes but don't have to do with Christmas. So shout out to Santa Claus in this one.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm going to watch like Michigan Monster at some point. It's on my watch list. But yeah, no, it's really fun. I was going to put this as like one of my moments this year, just for the look and the feel and a lot of the heightened gags that they do. And to sustain it for a feature is amazing, because I think I watched this and Sasquatch Sunset back to back, and this is so much better. But yeah, what fun. How can you not have fun with this movie?
Yeah, I loved it too. And it was right. It was on my halfway list, and it was right kind of at the bottom here. And I was, it'll definitely be it's an honorable mention for me. And it's not just a live action cartoon. What I love about it is that it is influenced by Looney Tunes, but it's also influenced by like, silent comedy, and it's influenced by Guy Madden, and it's influenced by video games. I mean, Scott Pilgrim versus the World is clearly a huge influence on this film. So many different things that they synthesize into something that's completely unique. And that's just really, really fun.
And the lead character might be an idiot, but the comedy is not idiotic. It's like really smart the way they put these gags together and everything.
Right. And so much, I feel like one of the flaws, if people mention, is that it's too long for a movie like this. But so much of the effectiveness of the humor is that intelligence, that some dumb things happens and then they build on it and then they call back to it. And because there's so much, you get like 100 minutes in and you're like, oh, wait, that goes to that and that. And it's funnier because it's been seeded throughout the film for so long.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say shout out to Downtown Cinemas and the Beverly for actually booking this movie, because this is, one of these small indies that has managed to become a success, even with like a small independent rollout.
Yeah, this movie, I mean, I would say like at one point it was like, oh, this is a cult classic, but I feel like it's almost already transcended that and just become a genuine like hit movie that people love.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're into our top 3. Jason, what do you got?
Number 3 is nominated for the Golden Globe for Best Comedy or Musical, which it is neither, and shame on you, category fraud yet again. But I watched this movie and I was kind of blown away with the writing and the performances, challengers, Luca Guadagnino's tennis love triangle, sports, drama. Best score of the year, hands down. Let's throw it out there. The Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross kind of, I don't even know, what would you call it? Like trip hop dance techno or something like that?
Electro, I think it's house. Score? It's house music, Dave?
House, industrial, a little bit of all that. But yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic score. It's definitely in my top 10 scores.
Yeah, I love that. The way he shoots the tennis scenes is really innovative. I was very impressed with that. This is hands down Zendaya's best work as an actor. And I might even vote for her for, like, if I was voting for best actress this year, she would probably be my pick for this. And Josh O'Connor radiates off the screen. It makes you want to watch everything this guy does. I feel like Mike Feist, he's kind of playing like the more dull, more robotic Bjorn Borg type, as opposed to O'Connor's McEnroe. I did that for you guys because I know you're huge tennis fans, so I wanted you to relate. But this is another one where the last scene, the ending, is so good and elevates the movie to me, and just is like a perfect ending. I think the character motivations on all three of these are so clear and well delineated, and yeah, this could easily be number one in another year. I have it at number 3. Challengers, amazing movie. Watch it.
Yeah, we did watch it.
Yeah, we both did.
Yeah. Well, maybe I was talking to the you of you in general.
No, I know.
It's great. And yeah, Josh O'Connor is like, I think is the standout. I mean, is so much fun to watch. And yeah, I want to see more from him.
Yeah, I was so underwhelmed with this movie. And, I feel like I was in the minority, especially when it came out earlier this year. And now maybe, more people have found fault with it. Tennis, Jason.
Hey-o. Nice. I love this movie, speaking of tennis punch.
Yeah, there you go. So I don't know. I mean, I think Zendaya is really good. The score is fantastic. And the original song, Compress Repress, at the end of this movie, I sat at the screening in the theater through the whole credits solely to hear that song because it was so good. And Josh O'Connor, I'm going to shout out like French Exit, another movie that other people did not care for that was my number 1 a few years ago, Mothering Sunday. He's so good in that movie that nobody saw. I felt like both him and Mike Feist in this were so like bowled over by Zendaya. She's so good and her character is so much more interesting than their characters that I just didn't care about the love triangle because it was lopsided. And the way the tennis scenes are shot is so showy that it just distracted me. This movie seemed like a lot of bluster for a kind of a nothing, but I'm definitely still in the minority on that. So
yeah, you cray, girl. I'm just gonna, first of all, I would agree with you that the Feist character is bowled over by Zendaya, but that's by design, right? Because of their relationship. But I feel like Josh O'Connor is totally up for the task of going one-on-one with her for a rally session, shall we say, for more tennis there. But yeah, man, I don't know what else to say about it beyond that. I also disagree with you. It is showy the way it's shot, but like in the same way that Raging Bull was showcasing the point of view of the kind of boxing scenes, I felt like this kind of worked for me in that regard for the tennis scenes.
You mentioned Queer earlier, Josh. Jason, have you seen Queer? I haven't seen it yet.
I have not.
Okay, yeah, because just the fact that he had 2 movies this year, but
and this one kind of got. You wonder if this was released in October, November, would it have more awards buzz? Definitely, I think for the acting, but I think there's so much more, that it deserves.
Yeah, I mean, it was originally meant to be released in award season last year, and then they pushed it because of the SAG strike, and so that's why he ended up with 2 releases this year. And Queer was the one that got the award season release. So I don't know. I also, like I was saying about Jason Schwartzman is a lot of fun in Queer, but overall it didn't really work for me. So to me, he's kind of 0 for 2 this year, but both of these movies are highly acclaimed by people who are not me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're 0 for 2.
Yeah. So true.
Josh, what's your number 3?
So speaking of 16 millimeter, my number 3 is Janet Planet from writer-director Annie Baker, an acclaimed playwright making her film debut here with a gorgeously shot mother-daughter drama starring Julianne Nicholson as the title character, set in 1990s Western Massachusetts, which is an area that I am familiar with, is where I went to college. So even though it was a little later, about 10 years later than this movie is set, that I went to college out there, it definitely felt like a familiar environment to me, and the kind of hippie bohemian culture that exists, and I think still kind of exists in places like Northampton out there. So immediately I was like, I get what's going on here. I get what she's going for. This is a dryly funny movie about the relationship between Julianne Nicholson's character and her kind of neurotic daughter, played by Zoe Ziegler. And it's about this overly close parent-child relationship. It's about Janet's ill-advised relationships, romantic relationships with people. And it's also just about a vibe. It's about living in this area, in this kind of counterculture environment. And it's the kind of movie that you just love being immersed in, and you just want to spend time with these people, and they're flawed people, but they're also so lovable and so relatable. A movie like this that is really just about kind of people talking could look bland, and it would still probably be really good, but it looks amazing with that 16 millimeter cinematography. You know, Annie Baker is a playwright, but she's definitely giving a lot of thought to camera setups and how to visually present this film. Like His Three Daughters, it has this kind of magical realist moment at the end that makes you step back and think for a moment. And the very, very end has this beautiful ambiguity. So I just love this movie. I've never read or seen an Annie Baker play, but I hope she continues making films.
Yeah, I liked it a lot too. It's not on my top 10 or anything. But speaking to her coming from being a playwright to moving into, films, I remember there was a Letterboxd review, said something about like, when the Avi title card showed up, the entire theater groaned. And I was just like that had to have been intentional. Just to, that everybody watching the movie is just like, oh God.
Yeah. Shout out to Elias Koteas, who is like unrecognizable as that character. Very, very good. But yeah, I mean, I think that's something that you could not do in a stage play, right? To have a title card and that gives you that audience reaction. But she definitely knows how that's going to work out.
Absolutely.
I got to watch it.
You do.
It's everything you said. I mean, makes it sound like something I would really like. So I'm excited for it.
I love that I get to go from a movie as small as Janet Planet to my number 3, Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire.
There's the dumb shit. We were waiting for it.
waiting. A couple of things got knocked out of my number 10 and 9 slot, but we'll talk about them in honorable mentions. But anyway, Godzilla X Kong is a movie that's made for me, basically. I had so much fun with this movie, and throughout the year, ever since this has come out, I'll just be like sitting in traffic or like, doing the laundry or doing something, and I'll think about Godzilla and Kong running side by side, and I just start laughing. Or I think about Kong doing that little motion of like, no, stop, I'm not a bad guy, to Godzilla, and he knocks him into the portal, and I just smile. Or Kong using Baby Kong as nunchucks. It's just the dumbest shit in the world, and it's so much fun. And I am just so thankful that Adam Wingard got a hold of this property and made Godzilla vs. Kong in 2021, and now this one. And I know he's moving on from it all, but I'm just so thankful for these two movies. They are so ridiculous and so silly, and exactly what I want out of King Kong. And we had a very heated debate on my live show about this versus Godzilla -1. But I think the real truth of the matter is, and we talked about it on the show, is why not both? Why can't we have both kinds of giant monster movies? The serious ones and the silly ones. This is the top of the silly ones.
Yeah, you're not supposed to pronounce the X, right? Isn't that what Adam Wingard said?
I think you said that to me at the top 10 midway episode. Yeah, so yeah,
this is my help. Pronounce things properly.
Yes.
That's what I'm all about here.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I don't even you can't argue, but I will say shout out to Dan Stevens as the kaiju dentist. He's had quite a year, and good for him.
Yeah. He's going to come up in my my moments part here in a little bit. But Jason, did you see Godzilla Kong?
No, I haven't seen it. Maybe I'll watch it with my kid. The way you describe it, Dave, other than Baby Kong nunchucks, nothing else sounds good.
Yeah.
But I'm not against it. I love Godzilla -1, so I'm more on that side of it.
Yeah, this is nothing like that. If you love that, this is not necessarily for you.
Yeah. So let's go on to Jason's number 2.
Number 2 was really my number 1 for most of the year. I was blown away by it. I saw the TV glow. Jane, Josh, say the last name.
I don't, I just said about how important it was to me, but I did not look this up. I want to say Shane Brun, but that might not be right. Yeah,
I think it's Shane Brun.
I feel like I would butcher it. I watched, we all watched We're All Going to the World's Fair, and I think we were all like, oh, it's okay. And so coming into this one, I didn't really think like I was going to love it. I kind of knew ahead of time that this was an allegory. The filmmaker is a trans person, and it's an allegory of her transition, and it works so well. I love the colors, the story. I don't know why some people say it's a horror movie. It's not a horror movie at all. It's just kind of a weird, surreal, kind of tripped out. I don't even know if you would call it a thriller or what, but it looks amazing. She utilizes technology in a really unique way in both of her films. And again, this is one where I'm like watching it. I'm like, how are they going to end this thing? There's no way to end this thing. And she nails the ending so hard. I just love this movie. I thought it was really amazing. And, as kids of the 90s, we can relate to a lot of the love of certain TV elements, which we also saw in I Like Movies this year. But this movie, I just loved it. Amazing movie. Me and Martin Scorsese, we both agree on
it. I think if anything, the ending is where the horror comes in. But yeah, it's a great one. And you had said that we all watched the last movie and just thought it was okay. I thought the last movie was just awful, and so I really didn't know what to expect going into this one. But I was surprised how much I liked it.
Yeah, I was hoping for that reaction because I didn't hate We're All Going to the World's Fair. I was excited to see it. It seemed like the kind of thing that would be for me, and it just didn't do anything for me at all. And I kind of felt that way about this film too. I didn't hate it. And there were some images that were really striking. I mean, I think Jason is right that it's not really a horror film, but there are some horrific images in it that I was like, whoa. But it's just so shapeless. And thematically, I knew what it was about because I'd read so much about it. As Jason's talking about, it's a trans allegory, although I feel like it could also be an allegory for any kind of identity or feeling different. Yeah. I mean, to me, watching it a lot, I was like, this could definitely be an allegory for being autistic, that kind of thing as well. But in the movie itself, I think it was just so opaque, to use a word that the movie uses a lot, that I wouldn't have really gotten anything out of it had I not read a bunch about it first. And the ending to me was just so nothing. I it literally, it cuts to black and I was like, what? That is how it ends? So overall, I was disappointed, but I will give Jane Shane Brun, or however you pronounce their name, another chance because I'm sure they'll get one because this was such a highly acclaimed film, and maybe finally their work will work for me at that point.
It's funny because you're talking about how shapeless it is, and I feel like it's a fully formed, fully shaped movie. But we just saw this one differently, and I'm okay with that because I loved it, and it's my number 2 pick. So there.
All right.
There you go.
Great.
There you go. Josh.
Yeah, I feel good about it.
Good.
What is your number 2 pick, Josh?
My number 2 pick is a film that I guess no one else seemed to have seen, although I finally saw another critic writing about it and I very much appreciated it. So shout out to Maria Gates at RogerEbert.com, who included this in their big roundup of underrated hidden gems of the year. It's Tyarisha Poe's The Young Wife. I loved her first film, Sella and the Spades, which I feel like did get a decent amount of attention. This movie premiered, I think it was at South by Southwest. I don't know how. It just got completely lost. It was released on VOD. Almost no one reviewed it. Almost no one saw it. But it's so good. It's easily as good as Sella and the Spades, and maybe even more so. She is such a confident filmmaker. This movie is visually just absolutely stunning. It's so well acted. Kiersey Clemons, who is always great and kind of underrated, I think, plays this main character, who's this woman dealing with her wedding day on this kind of sprawling family estate as all of her friends and family come in, and dealing with all of their little dramas, as well as her kind of personal drama having just quit her job. And it's the kind of thing that would be very small, but the way that Tairisha Poe presents it visually with these phantasmagorical colors and another kind of almost magical realist tone makes every personal drama into something universal. Judith Light is so good here as her fiance's grandmother, who is this kind of like salty old lady who is just dispensing great wisdom. It takes place in, I think it's 2033. So it's actually a lot like My Old Ass, where you just get these glancing references to like, oh yeah, we can't do that anymore. Or, oh, let's go somewhere where it still rains or something like that. And so it's got this great sort of mildly dystopian setting. And I just loved it. It's just such a beautiful film. And I don't know if more people will check it out or not, but hopefully they'll get the chance to.
Well, this is depressing because we make our watch list. This has been on my watch list for months, right? I love Kiersey Clemens. Selling the Spades wasn't my favorite, but I would watch it again. And also, you see like a lot of certain critics are like, oh, you got to check out this movie. So there's no way to check it out. Like you said, I think it's only VOD right now, but why isn't this with a reputable actress and an up and coming, kind of filmmaker getting a bigger platform or release? So I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad you brought it up, but it's a bummer that I didn't get to see it personally.
Yeah, I mean, it is available to rent on VOD for people who want to watch it. And I don't know if it'll eventually be on. It was released by Republic Pictures, which is the VOD division of Paramount. So maybe it'll eventually be on like Paramount Plus or something. Hopefully some other subscription service, a place where people can discover it rather than having to like deliberately go pay $4 to watch it. It would be great for people to see it that way.
Yeah, I'd like to eventually get to it too. I think you brought it up at the midway point.
I did,
you?
Yeah.
So I remember thinking it sounded interesting. So, hopefully we'll get to see it soon. My number 2, probably my actual number 1, but I had to put my other number 1 at number 1. But
sure.
it's
controversy.
Self-made
controversy.
Sometimes it's tough. It's tough to do these lists. It's The Substance. It is just an incredible horror sci-fi vision from Coralie Farge. Is that how you say it, Josh?
I think it's Farge, yeah, because she's French.
Yeah, Coralie Farge, starring Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley. Likely the grossest movie we'll see in a wide theatrical release in our lifetime. It's, a lot of the times over the last, obviously there's a lot to get into with this movie from, feminist perspective and like everything that it's saying about body image and the way that people look at themselves and all that, but also just from like a gorehound perspective, for the last, 30 years or whatever, like people have talked about movies that are as gory as Dead Alive and Evil Dead 2. And they always throw these names out there and then you go watch them and you're like, yeah, it was gory, but it wasn't that gory. I mean, come on. This is as gory as the most gory things ever, and it's so gross and so great, and the effects and like the way that they do all this stuff is so perfect. Also, speaking of gross, Dennis Quaid is just ridiculous.
Just crushing that shrimp.
Oh yeah.
I didn't love him in this movie.
I really did like it, and I mean, I think what's great, and it's not just him; it's the way it's shot. Like to make that eating shrimp as gross as that like horrific gore is an impressive feat.
It really is. It really is. But yeah, there's just so much to like about this movie. And I saw it twice in theaters. And the first time it was just kind of all washing over me, all the, craziness. The second time watching it was just how like perfectly put together it all is. I think it's just a total vision. And I still have not seen her other film, Revenge. I was hoping to watch it before we recorded this, but the end of the year is just such a crazy time trying to catch up on things. But hoping to watch it soon. Really looking forward to that. And I can't wait to see what else she does.
I like this movie. I didn't love it by any means. It exhausted me, and I don't think that's unfair to say. Yeah. So the first kind of transition from body to body is pretty amazing. You're like, what just happened? And this is a great, like we always talk about this when we do the trailer episodes, like, hey, we haven't seen this actor in 12 years. Why is she coming back in a crappy straight to Netflix? Right. I'm a spy and my husband's a spy and we don't know it type movie. But this is a great comeback vehicle for Demi Moore. And she and Margaret Qualley are really excellent. I just liked it. I didn't resonate with it as much as everybody else. However, I do hope, Dave, next year on New Year's Eve, you started at the exact right time. So when it hits New Year's, you can watch the New Year's Eve.
I was hoping to do that last night.
Yeah. People were, I saw somebody doing a bit on Blue Sky where he started posting like, oh, I'm so excited about Sue hosting the New Year's Eve show. It's going to be amazing. And he just kept going and going and going and going and just really committed to this bit.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm with Jason. Like, I liked it. And then it just kind of wore on me. It is so long, and the grossness is impressive. But on the other hand, like by the time you get to the grossest stuff, it's like, I get it already. Okay. It's so much hitting on the same themes and ideas and events. And it just kind of wore me out. But the performances, Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley, both really, really good. I did see Revenge, and I like that better. It's a little simpler, but it's also very stylish and well done. So I think you should definitely watch it, Dave. But yeah, I wish I had liked this more because, of course, I love crazy horror movies and love to have them on my list.
I think had this been 20 or 30 minutes shorter, it would have been more effective.
Yeah.
Possibly. Well, it's time for number ones. We're starting with Jason. What do you got?
Okay, my number one movie is not just maybe my number one movie this year, but it could be of the entire decade at this point. That's how much I love this movie. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to go back and look, but it's Brady Corbett's The Brutalist. Holy cow, this thing just knocked me on my ass, and I couldn't believe how amazing it is. Adrian Brody, easily my pick for Best Actor this year. Guy Pearce should get a Best Supporting Actor nomination, and hopefully Felicity Jones does as well. But just incredible. This movie's 3 hours and 20 minutes, and like you go in and you're like, oh, it's going to be a slog, but like it's amazing. Like it captures you from the opening frames and just keeps you going. And there are some twists, like not like, shocking twists, but like places you didn't see this movie going. And I just love it. I love the way it looks. I love the kind of scope of it. The score, again, one of the probably top 3 scores of the year. I think they've created this world of like, post World War II, small town America. Everyone can get theirs, but look at the kind of prices you pay. So just like everything just builds on everything is the best way to say this, right? Like it's just an incredible movie. And then the ending, which is, like years and years in the future, and you get this explanation that you never thought of. Like it hits you in all the right ways. Like this, this to me reminds me of the first time I watched The Deer Hunter, which Josh, you don't have to comment on because I know you don't like that movie, but in that like 3 hour epic scope where everything's just building on everything, and the end, the ending just kind of brings it up to the next level. Like this is my vote for everything in the Oscars this year, which nobody cares about that I don't vote. But I haven't watched Fox Lux or Brady Corbett's other movies, but that's going to be like definitely something I'm going to do this year. Like I can't believe how good this movie is. It's so great, this movie. Number one, The Brutalist.
Right on. I loved it too. I think a lot of what you said there I would completely agree with. And I think you might like Vox Lux. I mean, a lot of people did not, but I feel like you probably would if you got this much out of The Brutalist.
Well, yeah, but let's talk about The Brutalist, Dave.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Josh
didn't like Vox Lux.
I did not like Vox Lux at all. And I think that was one of the reasons why I was like, do I want to watch a 3.5 hour movie from the director of Vox Lux?
Yeah.
3 hours, 20 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
But I mean, I'm sure I will watch it because it has been so highly acclaimed, and it will open in theaters here in Vegas, I'm sure sometime in the coming month, and I'll need to watch it for that reason. And maybe I will love it. It has been, despite all the praise, something that I've been a bit wary of, but I will try to go in with an open mind. And, it helps the fact that Jason is giving it such high praise makes me anticipate it even more.
I didn't have any expectation going in. I had nothing to do on Christmas. I was like, 3 hours, 20 minutes. I was trying to check off everything from the AFI top 10, which I did do. But man, if nothing else, the way this movie, first of all, Adrian Brody, like unbelievable performance. Like I said, like I think that's something you can grab onto. And the way that the architecture is shot and framed and built is it's just incredible. I don't know how he pulled this movie off, but he pulled it off. And that's always something I love, when it's like, how did he do this? Like, it all works.
Yeah.
It all just works so great.
I'll also echo what you said, like, as far as the runtime is concerned, I know a lot of people are scared off by that a little bit, but it really does fly.
I do like architecture. So, shout out to Columbus. My favorite.
That was a good movie
about architecture.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
Off the top of my head. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, this definitely has some shared elements of that one, but that's a good movie. But
I love that movie.
Yeah, no, I can't recommend this movie highly enough. I feel like I've said everything that needs to be said, but it's also, I just want to say, nice to see, a guy like Adrian Brody who hasn't gotten to play a lead in so long, and Guy Pearce who hasn't had a meaty role like this in America in so long, really get to shine here.
Yeah. Speaking of people stuck in like straight to video garbage, like that's really where Guy Pearce has been for far too long. So
yeah, definitely.
I think that's great.
What's your number one, Josh?
Well, my number one is the same that it was at the halfway point, and it is also an epic. It's not quite as long, but it is long. It's Bertrand Bonello's The Beast, which takes place over the course of hundreds of years in 3 time periods. It's a period drama in, I think it's 1914, and then it's a semi-contemporary story in Los Angeles, and then it's also this dystopian future starring Léa Seydoux, who we briefly mentioned related to Dune, and George McKay, who was in a few other things this year, Femme, and I think 1 or 2 other things. He's had an impressive year as well, and they play multiple different people, or possibly the same people kind of reincarnated in different forms across time. And it's baffling, but I think to me, like watching I Saw the TV Glow, I was like, this is just, it doesn't really like reach me, and it's baffling. This movie, certainly if you watch this movie and you're like, I don't get it, I would be with you. I don't know that I entirely got it either, but the way it's presented is just fascinating and immersive. The parallels among the 3 stories, the kind of meta storytelling elements. It opens with like Léa Seydoux against a green screen and acting a scene to really highlight the artifice of everything. And her performance or performances or whatever across these different kinds of characters, just constantly mesmerizing. So I've not seen any of his other films. He's been highly acclaimed for quite a while, and I really want to delve into some more because I love this so much. The Beast.
I saw it because I knew you liked it. I liked it. I didn't get it, but it's hard. It's hard to follow. You know that. So but I still liked it, and it still looks great. And I like that the discotheques and weird things like, hey, we're going to go to 1981 discotheque or whatever like that. Very strange, very odd, interesting movie.
Yeah, I mean, all sorts of things where you're like, I don't know why they're doing this, but I'm so into it. At least that was the way that I felt.
Yeah, this is like top of the list of things that I have not gotten to that I've wanted to, and so I really need to watch it now.
Dave, if it helps to convince you, there's a weird part that features clips from Harmony Korine's Trash Humpers.
That actually that helps for sure. We'll get to Harmony Korine later in my honorable mentions. But number one for me is Furiosa. It is just an incredible piece of filmmaking from George Miller that I think complements his Mad Max Fury Road so well. As you guys know, 3,000 Years of Longing was like my favorite movie a couple of years ago. And this, I feel, is just as much him continuing in that vein as it is returning to the Mad Max world. This is a movie that really, when it comes down to it, is all about storytelling, which when you get through this movie and start to think about it and maybe rewatch the other Mad Max movies, you start to come to a realization that's really what he's been doing all along. It's just building out these worlds and just coming up with these crazy scenarios, these awesomely drawn characters and locations, and just letting action unfold in those. And that action is just the best action that I've ever seen, basically. It is so much fun and exhilarating, and I think Anya Taylor-Joy does a great job of taking over the Furiosa character. I think Chris Hemsworth, his character, is a complete idiot, but is so much fun to watch for me. I know, Josh, you weren't big on him.
Yeah,
but
I found him so annoying in this film, and not in a fun way.
Yeah, no, I had a blast, and the action, just when it unfolds, I know there's a lot of it, and I know some people might say that it's too similar to Fury Road, but it's just amped up to the next level as far as I'm concerned. And when it really comes down to it, though, it's all about the storytelling. To me, this is like a view into this like magical world. It's like discovering the Bible, after all these years, and like you have this whole world to explore now and think about. And I think it's just a miracle what he's pulled off with this. And obviously, it was a big flop. And we probably will never see. Maybe we'll see a TV series in the Mad Max world again, but I don't think he'll get a chance to make another movie. So this is it. But I think it's a perfect cap anyway.
Yeah, I was underwhelmed, and I didn't love Fury Road, but I was impressed with the craftsmanship, and I did think this was sort of just a pale reflection. And I love Anya Taylor-Joy, but also she's only in like half this movie. I mean, people keep like, I forget the name of the child actor who plays Furiosa, but she's at least as prominent as Anya Taylor-Joy.
And I love that whole opening sequence. Like I love all that stuff with the young girl that plays her. So
yeah, I don't know. It just didn't do it for me. And I did find Chris Hemsworth more annoying than entertaining as the villain. So yeah, not my favorite.
So I like it. I think it kind of kneecapped itself by being a Furiosa story, because Charlize is so kind of iconic as that character. Fury Road is one of my favorite movies of this century. I agree with you. He might not get another $200 million, but remember Mad Max, the first one, lean and mean, baby. Yeah. So who knows? He could go back and do something real scrappy like that. I like this movie. There are two, at least that I remember, great action sequences. One breaking into a town, one breaking out of a town. Right. So I liked it. I just think it was maybe mismarketed, mismanaged. And I'm glad that you have it at number one. I think more people will discover it, and as time goes by, when it's not just being compared to Fury Road, like it'll get more love.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that comparison, even though it's been a lot of years since Fury Road, it's not enough. Like we're still just comparing it, and that is definitely a hard hill to get over. So let's get into some honorable mentions. We'll just go all at a time. Jason, what do you have?
Well, so I'm going to just pick ones that we haven't mentioned already. Going back to what a great year in animation this was, The Wild Robot, really fun, beautiful movie. Lupita Nyong'o is amazing as the robot. Yeah. And again, like, there should be a category for like best voice acting, or, I mean, I would put her in like a best actress category for musical or comedy. This was a really fun movie and beautiful, and it reminded me a little of The Iron Giant in some ways, and of course, talking about the Earth and everything like that, and this island. I really like that. Going to a horror movie, and definitely an actor that I would put up for best actor, Late Night with the Devil. I'm not sure, again, the last 10 minutes didn't really do it for me, but up until that point, I really loved this movie. I loved the setting of just this kind of 70s late night talk show, and, conjuring the devil. Really, I just thought this might have been my favorite horror movie this year, if you're going to count, that as more traditional horror movie type thing. And then Go Jews, yet again, Bad Shabbos, a movie which I don't know if you can see yet. I saw it at the film festival at Cordillera. Very funny, strange take on what can go wrong at a Shabbos dinner, and kind of the wacky, fun cover-ups of it. Really, really, really good movie.
That sounds fun.
I will say that I think Jason, you're right that this movie hasn't actually been released yet, but it is playing here in Vegas at our Jewish Film Festival this month. So
all right, nice. Go see it.
Yeah,
go see it.
There we go. How about you, Josh?
I did have some things that were already mentioned. Hundreds of Beavers, which I really enjoyed, and My Old Ass that Jason mentioned as well. So a couple things that weren't mentioned. Ethan Coen's Drive Away Dolls, which was on my halfway list, and I feel like got so underrated. People really disliked this for some reason, a lot of people. And I just thought it was so fun. And here, talk about Margaret Qualley. What a year. She is so entertaining in this movie. It's really funny. Her and Geraldine Viswanathan have great chemistry together. Beanie Feldstein is really funny in it. It's super goofy. It's definitely, it's great to see the Coens between this and then Joel Coen's super, super serious Tragedy of Macbeth. You can really see what each of them bring to their collaborations. But if you like wacky Coen's movies or the wackiness in Coen's movies, I feel like this is totally that. And it's like 85 minutes long. It's really fun. I don't know why people didn't like it. So that to me was really enjoyable. And then I will give a shout out to Remy and Arletta again. The movie that I mentioned was actually released in 2023 in some very small number of theaters. I wasn't aware of it. Was sent by Michaela Whitman, who's the star and writer of this film, a screener when it was released on VOD this year. And I had kind of had it on my top 10 until I realized it wasn't a 2024 release. But it's a really, really good coming of age story about two best friends in high school, kind of figuring out how they relate to each other. It's a bit of a queer coming out story, and it's a bit about class differences and about abusive parents. But it's also really fun and light and just joyous about the wonderfulness of friendship. So not a movie that almost anyone has seen, but it is, I know, on Hoopla as well as on VOD rental. So shout out to Remy and Arletta.
Right on. And yeah, Josh talks about that more on our first time watches episodes.
Because of the weirdness of the release date, and then I got to plug it twice.
That's right. Now I'll probably watch it. So, so honorable mentions from me, things that we already mentioned: Flow, Between the Temples, Rebel Ridge, and The Brutalist. But moving on from there, my number 10 for a while, I was really struggling back and forth between Aggro Drift, the latest Harmony Korine film, which is just completely insane and ridiculous, and totally Harmony Korine with a whole bunch of money to do something unique and weird. And then Bad Boys Ride or Die, which anybody will want to check out our Bad Boys 2 episode of Awesome Movie Year to hear Josh and Jason's thoughts on that series. But then those got bumped when I moved some things around. A couple other things that I really love: Terrifier 3, which I really did not expect to like those movies, but I did a live show on Terrifier 3, and so I watched the first two and ended up really liking them, and I thought the third was as good, if not better, than the other two. So great movie there. Lisa Frankenstein, which I really think is going to be a cult classic one of these days, but it just really just died in theaters, and a lot of people just did not seem to like it. I don't know.
Are you just reading a list of every movie you've seen this year? Your honorable mentions are longer than your top 10s, bro.
That's all I got. Lisa
it's his podcast.
It's his podcast. I agree.
I went over those four really quickly that you guys had already talked about. But yeah, and Lisa Frankenstein is my last one. So
yeah, Lisa Frankenstein was a huge disappointment for me because everything about it seems like everything that I would love in a movie. And I thought it was just so poorly put together with those elements, and it was super disappointing. But already people are talking about it that way. I think similarly to Jennifer's Body, another Diablo Cody written horror movie that I remember being disappointed with, but maybe I would enjoy upon revisiting.
I watched it this past year. It's not that good. I don't care what anyone says.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's how I feel about Lisa Frankenstein.
So it's time for some favorite moments. Jason, let's start with you. 3 favorite moments from movies this year.
Okay, so really this was, I'm going to say, number 11 on my list of best movies this year. So it could have been in my, honorable mentions, but I moved it down to here. It's Wicked. It's the defying gravity scene. I know some people hate Wicked, some people love it. I thought all the things that didn't work for John Chu in The Heights, he really made it work here. I love the world. I think the 2 leads are so good. Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande just kills it. But Defying Gravity, which is, kind of the quintessential song that in Popular, you could put them both on here, but I thought Defying Gravity worked as a really amazing crescendo to part 1, and I'm not sure how they're going to live up to it in part 2 based on the ending of that. And then I put June Squibb from Thelma, which is not a scene, but she's awesome. She's in her 90s and carries a movie. And I thought Richard Roundtree was great too. And this movie is a fun little kind of like, hey, you took something from me, I'm going to get it back, but done, with the old people. And she's so affecting and wonderful. And you really feel everything that character feels. And then the third one, as always, I put my favorite kill of the year. This is from the movie Kill, where they throw a lighter down a dude's throat and his head catches on fire. That's my favorite kill of the year. So those are my 3.
Love it. I love them all. Those are great, Jason. What about you, Josh?
Yeah, well, Kill is a movie that had been on my list that I wanted to get to. And I'm actually going to make a switch up here inspired by Jason's pick for his favorite kill, because One of my initial picks was from My Old Ass, but I feel like we've talked about that enough already. So I will talk about my favorite kill from a movie that I was mixed on, and I know Jason and I have talked about In a Violent Nature, but the yoga pose kill in that movie is just so amazing and just kind of keeps going in a way that you're like, oh my God. And that the concept of that movie is so much about like slow, methodical walking and how we're taking this slasher movie and turning it into this sort of art house, slow thing. And then you get this insane kill that would happen in the most ridiculous over the top horror movie. So I enjoyed that, even though I think that movie is sort of mixed in terms of what it's attempting to do. So that's one from me. Other things that I had noted down already in Richard Linklater's Hitman, which overall I was a little mixed on, but there is a scene between Glenn Powell and Adria Arjona's character where they have to communicate in one way while they're speaking to each other, while conveying something completely different to each other via notes that he writes on his cell phone. And it's just so funny. And it's so deftly handled both by the characters and by Richard Linklater and by the actors. And it's exactly the kind of thing that I wanted out of that movie as a whole. And I think it doesn't always quite deliver, but one of the funniest, most audacious scenes of the year. And they have great chemistry in that film, Glenn Powell and Adria Arjona. So a lot of fun in that one scene, even if the movie itself mixed. And then another movie that I was mixed on, but has one especially fantastic scene, was Civil War. And people have talked about this scene a lot. Jesse Plemons comes into that movie and just scares the hell out of you, the characters and the viewer. And, I feel like Jesse Plemons a lot of times plays these nice guy characters or kind of put upon characters or whatever. And he comes in and brings that nice guy energy to this militia leader who is just the most dangerous fucking guy you can imagine. And he's so calm about it. And he's wearing these ridiculous red sunglasses. And, it's great. And again, I feel like it's what I wanted more of out of that movie as a whole that doesn't quite work.
I like all these picks. I thought In a Violent Nature was one of my kind of top tier horror movies of this year. And that's a wild ass scene you're talking about right there. Hitman, I was disappointed in. I love Richard Linklater. I need to rewatch it because I just didn't work for me. But I do, Glenn Powell's a movie star. He's good in it. Adrian Arjona shines in that movie, and that is a fun scene. Civil War is awesome. That could have been an honorable mention for me. Kirsten Dunst is great. And the Plemons scene is the, kind of standout, just really tense scene in the film. But I'm glad Civil War is starting to get a little more love, because when it came out, it was, it didn't seem like it was getting all that love. And I do think it's maybe not as good as the best Alex Garland movies, but it's really good.
Yeah, again, I was mixed on it. I did think Kirsten Dunst was really good as well, and I had her on my best actress list, but the movie as a whole, I feel like, doesn't quite achieve what it needs to achieve. But that one scene.
And speaking about memes, that Civil War scene, that was a big one this year. So
right.
By the way, I would totally rock those sunglasses he wears in that.
Yeah, I'm surprised A24 didn't send those out to promote Civil War. But Dave, are you going to do your top 10 memes this year on a new episode?
I should, actually. That's a really good idea. So you were just talking about Glenn Powell. I'm going to go to a different Glenn Powell movie for my first one, and that is Twisters. The sequence where they have to hide out in a movie theater and then the movie theater screen wall gets sucked out. That is Lee Isaac Chung doing just the best of what Spielberg might have done in his prime. It is just such a fun sequence and a really great movie. I really like Twisters a lot. My second one, we talked about Dan Stevens earlier. It's from Abigail, when they first realize that what they're dealing with is vampires, and then Dan Stevens is kind of giving everyone directions on to go get the classic things we know, help against vampires, and he tells Catherine Newton's Sammy to go get garlic, and then she comes back with a bag, and he looks at her and he goes, "Sammy, those are fucking onions." And she's like, "I don't cook. I don't know." That whole scene is so funny. And then speaking of future cult classics that no one else agrees with me about, Miller's Girl, a movie that nobody liked and I loved, definitely in my top 20. But this is a movie that people just seem to think was a serious like sexy thriller when it was so clearly a comedy. And Jenna Ortega's best friend character is played by Gideon Adlon. Her name's Winnie is the name of the character. And she has all these weird throwaway goofy lines. But the best one is when she wants to like stop talking to Miller. She's bored by it already. And she wants to go get lunch because she's hungry. And she says, "It's chicky bicky cokey time. Let's go." It's just so ridiculous, and she is ridiculous. Every character in this is ridiculous, and I just love this movie. And I hope people check out Miller's Girl eventually.
I was kind of curious to watch it, but given some of your other movies that you love that no one else loves, it made me wary, but I theoretically kind of like the idea of that movie.
Yeah, sure.
She's not the only one who's hungry.
Jason's ready to wrap this up and go eat.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, last thing we're going to do is read off some stuff from the Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces group. I will quickly mention people's top pick and then anything that we haven't talked about yet. So first of all, my wife, Gina Mizzoni, is Conclave, which we talked about. Joe Black mentioned Saturday Night as his number one, which was one I was considering for my honorable mentions. Did you guys like Saturday Night?
I didn't see it.
Okay. What about you, Jason?
I didn't watch it either, which is crazy because, I should watch it. I'll watch it in this month probably.
Joe always has some out there picks, so I'm only going to mention two others because there's too many for us to mention. But Nutcrackers and Pool Man, which you guys know I was really excited for. I actually really liked Pool Man. I did not love it, though. It didn't obviously make my list.
And I like Nutcrackers. It's a fun, good Christmas movie. Pluck it, cook it, put it in a pot. Elizabeth. I like Nutcrackers, and I also like That Christmas. Two really fun, good new Christmas movies to add to your list.
All right. Paul Hibbard, The Brutalist, was his number one as well, Jason. Let's see, something that he mentioned. The Seed of the Sacred Fig, which I know a lot of people have talked a lot about. I have not gotten a chance to see. And How to Have Sex, which had a lot of buzz early in the year, but I don't know where that went.
And that's one that I thought was a last year release, so I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. But going on to Stephen Hughes, mentioned Wicked as his number one. And let's see, two things that we haven't talked about. The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, which I can never... No, you didn't like it, Josh? No. I didn't think it looked good, but...
Yeah, it's just a bunch of nothing. It's not terrible. It's just like, it feels like a straight-to-video, like, tossed off bonus feature or something.
All right. And then here's one I'm surprised we haven't talked about yet. Anora is on his list, which I liked a lot. I didn't love it, but I liked it.
Yeah, I was not into it.
Okay. What about you?
I think we all feel the same way about it. Like, I liked it, but didn't love it. I thought the last scene was great, and obviously, great performances throughout. But Josh, I think, really kind of hit it on the head where it's like, okay, this is exactly what you thought would happen in this story.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I was pretty underwhelmed, and I'm kind of back and forth on Sean Baker, but it's so long for for
a hangout movie,
right? And for a shaggy dog kind of story, essentially, I just found it taxing.
All right. Arthur Glover also had The Brutalist at number one, and a couple things that we haven't talked about. Sing Sing, which I thought was pretty damn good, and The Apprentice. I didn't see The Apprentice.
No, me neither.
It's going to depress me, I'm sure. I would probably watch it for Jeremy Strong alone. But again, Sebastian Stan, another guy who's in the MCU, who's really kind of doing some interesting things, that and A Different Man, right? Which we also I have to see this year. Sing Sing's good, and Coleman Domingo, he's great. Obviously an amazing actor, but the dude who's Divine Eye, I think, is the guy who plays him.
Clarence Macklin,
he's gonna get a deserved nomination. Really, really cool. Good stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Nice movie.
Josh's sister, Brandy Bell, mentioned Thelma. She said that was the only thing she had time for to mention. So we talked about that earlier.
Yeah, that's why that kind of jogged my memory on June Squibb, who's just delightful there.
I can't wait to see it.
It's really fun. It's very fun.
Chris Johnson had Dune 2 as his number one, and a couple things we haven't talked about. Juror number 2 and Ghostlight. I've seen a lot of people talking about how great Ghostlight is. I have not seen that. And Juror number 2, I know some people love, some people hate. I haven't seen that either yet.
It's fine. I mean, I think people were so outraged at the injustice of Clint Eastwood's movie getting buried that they maybe overpraised it. It's a workmanlike legal thriller, and to be perfectly honest, is the kind of thing that you can easily watch at home and I feel like not lose out on anything. But I watched it at home.
I mean, just give this guy his movie theatrical release, though, Zaslav, you dick.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm with people on that. Like, he's Clint Eastwood. Come on, but don't pretend like this is some masterpiece of a film.
Ghostlight looks very interesting, thoe. Yeah.
Did you see that, Josh?
No, I didn't, but I would check it out. Yeah.
Okay. Chad Clinton Freeman mentioned he's been busy with the music world lately, but he mentioned I Saw the TV Glow and Joker Folie à Deux. I still think Joker was doing something interesting. It just didn't do it very well. So I'm not that far off with that. And we talked about I Saw the TV Glow.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that Chad and I agree on something, but also at the same time, I got to give credit to Chad because he picked the second movie that I absolutely hate, so we disagree on that. So
there you go.
But I didn't think it did any of those things well.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like if he's coming up with an interesting perspective in that film, it's almost by accident.
Well, that's what I said about the first one too.
Yeah.
But speaking of I Saw the TV Glow, I also watched The People's Joker, and I think that's a good companion piece because it's another trans filmmaker, and I feel like that movie gets lost in like, hey, here's the message, here's the message, whereas I Saw the TV Glow kind of tells a fully encompassing story to give you that whole picture.
Yeah. Demetrius Sanders had Conclave at number 1, a couple of other things. Well, I mentioned The Return in passing, but I'll mention that as one from his list. And then Kinds of Kindness, the Yorgos Lanthimos film, which I didn't like nearly as much as last year's Poor Things, but I definitely enjoyed.
Did not see it.
Didn't see it? No.
Yeah, I didn't either.
It didn't seem,
I stink.
Didn't seem like something. I like Yorgos when he's working with not himself as a writer. And I feel like that was a throwback to his earlier films that I'm not that as crazy about. So,
all right. What about The Return? Have either of you seen it?
No,
it's not available yet out here, but again, I'm very excited. Ralph Fiennes, what a year!
Yeah, it did have like a very small theatrical release, and it did open here, but it feels like something that whatever the studio was, I think Bleecker Street, maybe they were really not promoting at all.
Yeah, seriously. But I went on the last day it was open, and it was worth it. It was worth it. Derek Murray mentioned Nickel Boys as his number 1, and then a couple of other things: No Other Land, and I guess Hitman. You had it in your moments, but we haven't had it in any of our picks. So yeah.
Nickel Boys is interesting. It's hard to watch, man. That is a hard one to watch.
That's how I felt about it.
The subject matter, but the kind of forced perspective that he uses is pretty unique there.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but I'm sure that I will.
Okay. And last but not least, because I love this movie so much, Will Hines mentioned The Beekeeper, which was on my top 10 at the midway point, but of course a lot of movies came out throughout the year, so...
Beekeeper's awesome. Again, I wish they would have used electrified bees, and I could have used 1 or 2 more Statham ass-kicking scenes. But really, really fun Statham movie.
Hopefully, Beekeeper 2 will actually ramp all that up. So.
Of course, yeah. It is probably the best movie that David Ayer has directed.
There you go.
Or close to it. And along with Thelma, the movies this year, movies about revenge for seniors who get scammed.
Yeah.
And there's a great little documentary called Starring Jerry as Himself that is about that same subject matter. That's worth checking out that I enjoyed this year.
Right on.
The preview again, maybe for that episode that might happen.
Yeah, it might happen. We'll see.
It's happening.
What other things are happening with you two? Give your plugs.
Yeah. Awesome movie year. We're doing our 20th season retrospective thing. We had a draft. It's a whole thing. We're looking back at all sorts of different years that we've covered in past seasons. Each of us making some picks from different years. So jumping all around in this season. And that's been a cool, fun, offbeat experience for us. I don't know what's coming up next as of when this comes out, but something fascinating, I'm sure.
Yeah, something fascinating. That's the important thing.
Always
I'm having fun with Awesome Movie Year this season. I have fun every season. And, I know with our first time watches of 2024 from other years, a lot of Awesome Movie Year movies made it onto our list. So that's pretty cool. I'm doing the stand-up comedy. How about that? Good times, good fun. I have a residency at Jimmy Kimmel's Comedy Club every other Thursday at 11:30 p.m. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to try to do a lot more Eat This comedy this year and run in trivia nights around town. But Kimmel's big thing. Let's go. Have fun. Go.
Yeah, yes. Check out awesomemovieyear.com, Awesome Movie Year, Facebook, Instagram, Awesome Movie Pod. on Twitter, where Dave gets all his terrible film takes that he brings into the podcast.
Yep.
And, listen wherever you get the podcasts.
I'll go for Jason on Letterboxd, Jason Harris Comedy, or Jay Harris Comedy on all the things.
Yeah, and I'm at Signal Bleed on Letterboxd and on Blue Sky, and at Josh Bell Hates Everything on Facebook, and joshbellhateseverything.com. I think I'm going to get my first time watches, which is like the only thing I ever put on there anymore. So I'm putting that together. I think it might be posted soon. We'll see.
Right on. Do you think you'll beat the episode to press?
Maybe. I've been working on it as I go, just with letterbox comments and stuff. So I feel like I'm better equipped to get it published and out there. So we'll see how that goes.
Guys, it's always fun doing these episodes. Thanks for being here, and we'll get each of you back on again soon.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that conversation about the top 10 films of 2024. Thank you to Josh Bell and Jason Harris for joining me on that one. Thank you to all of you for listening. If you're enjoying piecing it together, make sure you're subscribed. And also subscribe to Awesome Movie Year while you're at it. We're in the middle of our 20th season, doing a retrospective going back to previous Awesome Movie years that we've covered in the first 19 seasons. And it's been a really fun one so far. So go check out Awesome Movie Year. Make sure you're subscribed to both of our podcasts. You could also follow me on social media at Piecing Pod. I told you about the Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces Facebook group at the top, but make sure you check that out. And you could also check out our Patreon, where I post bonus and advanced content from Piecing It Together, Awesome Movie Year, and from my music career. You can check that out at patreon.com/bydavidrosen. There's going to be a lot more stuff hitting the Patreon in 2025, so now is a good time to get in on it. And, we love that you're out there just listening to the show, commenting, sending in your puzzle pieces, all that kind of stuff. But if you want to support the show, you could also sign up for that Patreon. So looking back at 2024, that is the theme of the episode, right? So to close this out with a piece of music, I got to look back at 2024. And in 2024, aside from all my regular David Rosen instrumental music, my main thing, I also put out 2 albums of songs about my pets, the Pup Pups. And so I'm going to play a Pup Pups song because that really is kind of what I'm the most proud of in 2024, quite frankly. So, I'm going to play one of those songs, and let's see, what should I play? Well, we're talking about movies that are the best, so I'm going to go with a song about a boy who is the best. It's a song called World's Best Boy, about our dog Harvey, who is the lead singer of the Pup Pups, but I sing on this one. So this is World's Best Boy from the recently released A Boy and His Dog and Three Cats and a Bear, which is available on vinyl. You can get it at Wax Trax Records here in Las Vegas, or you could order it from me online and I'll ship a copy out to you. And it's also, of course, on all the streaming services. You can go just listen to it. But this is World's Best Boy, and we'll be back with more Piecing It Together real soon.
Yeah, he's the world's best boy. He's the world's best fella. Tell me, do you hear what I'm trying to tell you? Yeah, he's the world's best boy. The world's best companion. With a smile and eyes and heart as big as the Grand Canyon.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.